Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our council meeting. This is Monday, April 28th. It is Election Day in Canada, and I think it's quite fitting that for the first time in a very long time, I can't tell you exactly how long, we are going to start our meetings with the singing of O Canada. And I think it is quite appropriate that we do it on this Election Day across the nation. So I'll ask you to stand, and the flag is to my right here, and we'll sing O Canada. Now I'm going to invite Councillor Bartley to read our land acknowledgement.
Thank you, Mayor Kentner. We would like to begin by acknowledging that we are meeting on the traditional lands and treaty territory of the Saugeen Ojibwe Nation, which includes the Chippewas of Nawash Unceded First Nation and the Chippewas of Saugeen First Nation. We also recognize the Métis whose ancestors share this land and these waters. We extend our gratitude to the Anishinaabe and the Métis people and their descendants, past, present, and future, who continue to care for and inhabit these lands and tend these waters.
Thank you, Councillor. And I'll just pass on regrets from Councillor Greenfield, who is doing his civic duty today, helping at the polls. Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest around the horseshoe? Seeing none, just a reminder, you can bring it forward at any time. Announcements. I'm going to start by just drawing attention to the fact this is the first meeting for Sean Everett, our new CAO. Welcome, Sean. And we'll be hearing from you, I'm sure, throughout the meeting, but I just want to make sure that we acknowledge how welcome you are. Other announcements around the table. Councillor Urick.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have two. First, I wanted to just say I had the pleasure of representing the municipality at a great event last week, Wednesday, April 23rd. Once again, like last year, the Billy Bishop Museum, the Meaford Museum, the Georgian Bay Community School, and the Owen Sound District Secondary School got together and they presented a tribute to the 80th anniversary of the liberation of the Netherlands. Last year, if those that remember, they did commemorated the 80th anniversary of Normandy. This was once again a really good, important platform where they had 11 students get up and read research and tributes to soldiers, local soldiers who had lost their lives representing Canada. And 40 students will be going over to the Netherlands to represent Canada and to visit these sites again to learn more about that. So it's a really, really important reminder and lesson, particularly for our youth, to keep that memory alive. Particular thank you to Quinn Skeen at Meaford Museum, who was one of our organizers and represented our museum at that event. That was really, really good. The second thing I would like to mention is that this Saturday, May 3rd, from 8 a.m. to noon, the Grey Sawville Conservation Authority will be holding their annual tree sale. So it's a great opportunity for people to get out, and hopefully it's not raining like it does every year. But an annual event where they can purchase many saplings and trees that are available. And that'll be at the Grace Hopple Admin Center. So 8 to noon, Saturday, May 3rd. Thank you very much.
Deputy Mayor?
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, and good afternoon, everyone. I also wanted to mention, we talked about today being the election, but it's also the National Day of Mourning that is marked annually in Canada on April the 28th to recognize all of those who have lost their lives or have been injured in workplace accidents. On this coming Sunday, May the 4th, is the annual spring concert for the Golden Heirs Ladies Choir. That will take place at 2 p.m. at the United Church, and admission is by donation. And the theme this year is We Belong Together, very appropriate. There will be refreshments after the concert, and it's a great way to welcome spring. Also on May the 10th is the annual Rotary Baggy Spring Community Cleanup, and that will be happening across the municipality, but we ask people to congregate at the Harbor Pavilion at 10 a.m. and they can choose an area of town that they would like to clean up, and all bags and gloves and so on will be provided. And we really feel we've made a difference with this event. We're not seeing nearly as much litter around the community. I think people are really getting the idea to keep Meaford clean. And my last announcement is for Riverside. On behalf of the Riverside Board, they host a breakfast on the second Sunday. So the next one will be May the 11th, a very appropriate time to celebrate mothers. Breakfast is from 9 until 1. It's $15. They always put on a great buffet. So come on out and support Riverside. Thank you very much.
Councillor Porter.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you, we just want to give two shout outs real quick. One, last Friday, I had the pleasure of volunteering at the at Bogner Hall for their fish fry event. And I was bustling tables with my wife and a bunch of other volunteers, and it was awesome. I believe they sold over 200 fish and chips dishes, and CC's Concessions, which is really well known in Meaford. They were busting their butts, I tell you. But it was a ton of fun, and we look forward to seeing a lot more events like that in Bogner. It really is a happening place, and they've got a tremendous board. So my gratitude goes to them and all their efforts in putting these types of events together. My second shout out is to kind of a personal favorite of mine is the quilt show last Saturday at the Meaford United Church. I don't know what it is about quilts, but I'm just so impressed with the craftsmanship that goes into making these things, something that I could never possibly do, but I really admire it. So I just want to thank everybody for putting another successful event on and showing off their work. And I truly enjoyed my time there. So just want to give those shout outs. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. And Councillor Bell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll do a little shout out on the sporting end of things in our community. If you folks saw a nice write-up that was done in the Meaford Independent, I had someone come and talk to me that they had a person in their family is actually part of this championship team, and it was the Georgian Shores Lightning. They went undefeated in a championship round, and it was on the weekend of April 4th, 5, and 6. And they won it. They were undefeated, and they are at an under 11 tier 3 OMHA, and they are the champions, the Red Hats. It was very nice, and there was a nice write-up in the Meaford Independent. On another little aspect of some sporting scene, it's come to my attention that lacrosse will likely be coming to the Meaford Arena. And the Own Sound Arena where they play their junior and senior lacrosse is undergoing some major renovation. So the lacrosse is going to be split between Shallow Lake Arena and here. And if you're inclined to see some really good lacrosse, I understand that the senior is, if you're a hockey person, very much like the semi-pros. They're that good. So if you have an opportunity and you hear about some lacrosse here, please take in a game. Thank you.
Excellent. Are there any announcements on the other side of the horseshoe? Go right ahead there.
I'd like to welcome Brooklyn Ryman to our staff. She's coming on as our financial clerk, property taxes. Brooklyn comes to us with a solid financial background, specializing in tax and revenue. And she also has experience interacting with and providing solutions for residents and members of the public. Thanks.
Welcome. Yes. Go ahead, Sean.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I have two announcements from an operational aspect. Memorial Park tree removal, spring cleanup at Memorial Park is underway. A big portion of the cleanup this year consists of tree removal for any dead or diseased trees, primarily the ash trees. The work began on April the 23rd by a contractor and will take 2 to 3 weeks with the park remaining open and safe access maintained. At this time, there is no budget in 2025 for replacement trees. This can be considered during the 2026 budget discussions. And then secondly, Memorial Park and Harbor open this week. Memorial Park and the Harbor will officially open for the season Thursday, May the 1st. Residents can now apply online for the free parking at Memorial Park at meaford.ca/parking or at the municipal office and or the Memorial Park offices. Thank you for that.
Great, thank you. And I'll just, no more. I just mentioned that tonight between 5 and 7 is the annual volunteer appreciation event in Meaford. And the only problem we have is finding a place big enough to accommodate all of our volunteers. But we are going to be filling both galleries at Meaford Hall between 5 and 7 tonight. And we'll also be honoring our Volunteer of the Year. So it's looking forward to that very much. So I'm going to move on to public participation then. Members of the public are, of course, encouraged to provide council with their comments and questions. Presentations must be prearranged with legislative services before the agenda is released and will be limited to 10 minutes. If a member of the public wishes to make a deputation on items on the council agenda or to ask a public question of council, they may do so either in person at the council chambers or remotely via Zoom. Members of the public wishing to make a deputation or ask a public question must register in advance with legislative services by 10 in the morning on the day of by contacting clerk@meaford.ca or calling 519-538-1060 extension 1100. An email with access information will be sent to those who register for remote participation. Deputations are limited to 5 minutes and public questions are limited to 2 minutes. And just a reminder, the public can watch this meeting live via the Municipality of Meaford's YouTube channel, www.meaford.ca/YouTube. We have no presentations, but we do have one deputation today, and I'd like to invite Georgie Donnet to take the podium here, and we'll get a microphone on for you, Georgie, and she's speaking to the financial report 2025-08 Recreation Fund Policy Update.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Before I begin, I'd like to invite you all to our dance show that's coming up this May 30th, 7 p.m. Meaford United Church. It's going to be a blast, and it's an absolute wonderful thing to for all the community to enjoy. Thank you for allowing me to speak to council today regarding the municipality of Meaford's recreation subsidy. As we know, Meaford's recreation subsidy is unique in the area, and I believe it has contributed to the health and well-being of many of our more vulnerable citizens. I'm going to speak of the subsidy as it applies to children because they are the main constituency at my studio that accesses it. My name is Georgie Donnet, and I'm the owner and director of the local dance and aerial arts studio called Mutable Arts. Our tagline is Dance with Us, and we run programs for children, adults, and everyone in between. Dance, like most skills, requires repetition over months and then years to gain the mastery that students seek. Think about learning to play the violin. We all know that it takes practice over many years to reliably create a sound that is pleasing to the ear. It is the same process in dance. To be able to spend that kind of time to develop a skill that will nurture their brains and their hearts, students need support. Not support for 1 semester or 1 year, but over multiple years. As a recreational activity, dance is one of the more affordable, but it is still out of reach for many local families. When Meaford instituted their subsidy program somewhere around 2017, I believe the subsidy amount was around $250 per child per year. This was helpful, but the subsidy really became a game changer when it was increased first to $500 per year per child, and then to the current $750 per child for the last several years. Why was this change such a big deal? With a lump sum like $750, families could now consider activities out of reach financially usually. That this fund has been reliable and predictable over the last several years has meant that students could commit to the studio, and the studio could likewise commit to these students, knowing that at least this amount would be accompanying a student's attendance. The folks that I believe really benefit from Meaford's funding are those whose income is quite low or inconsistent. Confounding issues include difficulty in navigating devices and websites when making applications, and people may not know what subsidies are available or how to research them. Their primary concern is often survival, and there's not a lot of energy or time to dedicate to aspects of life outside of that. Knowing this, I will sit with dance families to complete applications, often at their homes. I spend about 2 full-time weeks of work a year managing subsidy applications and follow-up. Note as well that families of low income are sometimes not able to pay really anything towards their student dance. That which is not covered by subsidies is sometimes absorbed by the studio. It's important to note that. I'd like to speak to some of the recommendations shared in the April 7th brief. For example, the refining covered expenses to focus exclusively on registration costs for recreational activities. A dance student also needs a costume and a uniform and special shoes in order to participate. Not covering those aspects can make it very difficult for students to be included. And also the work of backing out equipment fees out of an invoice can be a barrier for some families in completing their applications. The idea of spreading funds out over a year certainly bears looking into, and splitting funds into longer spring, brief summer, and short fall terms could keep things proportional. Online forms are convenient for the funding body, but if they are an exclusive avenue to apply, this can set up a barrier for families that is honestly insurmountable for some. If our intention is for those with the most need to get access to funds, then we would want to make it as easy as possible for them to apply, and that includes allowing paper submissions, whether they are then scanned and mailed or submitted in hard copy. I would suggest that the municipality of Meaford approach means testing in the same way that Grey County subsidy does, by using the Canada Child Benefit Notice, and I can go on all about that at some point if anyone wants more info. In terms of setting low-income cutoff amounts, it might be interesting to look at the Grey County's model, which reduces funds available as family income goes up. Both systems have their limitations, but there may be a middle ground in there. It's important too to remain responsive to changing circumstances. For example, a family that did well financially last year may well have lost a job or income this year. We need to be able to roll with that as well. I understand that there are often local activities for seniors that are free or very low cost, and I would recommend reserving the bulk of the funds for children, keeping in mind that adults do absolutely need support as well. And finally, I would caution against, I would caution against lowering the amount offered to individuals by very much, at least in the short term, for the reasons I've stated above. I also anticipate that this season's applications will include, or I'm hoping that this season's applications, once they're open, will include the period from January 2025 and forward. I mentioned in the beginning that this subsidy being so reliable has resulted in students being able to be a part of something that they otherwise may not. The studio has been advancing credit for student classes for the last 4 months since the beginning of January, expecting that this subsidy will come through as it has in previous years. And if it does not, consequences are tricky for the studio. I've done a deep dive into all the subsidies available for our area, including requirements and limitations, and I would be happy to speak with staff or anyone who wants to hear about what I have learned and how all this works in practice. And to finish, the key words here, I believe, are reliable and consistent. Meaford has been a source of reliable and consistent recreational funding these last many years, creating a space for children to flourish. If the goal is to keep or to help foster happy, healthy, contributing citizens, then I can think of no more effective way to do so than supporting children with their dreams. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you, Georgie. Does anyone have any questions for her? Councillor Forder?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And through you, hi, Georgie. Nice to see you. Thank you for speaking today. Just for everybody listening and everybody in the room, could you put in perspective what it would cost for a child to attend, say, one of the dance programs for a season? I think that's important when we consider that we are proposing to reduce the annual credit from $750 to $500. So being able to put that in perspective, I think, is important. So maybe if you could share that to us, that'd be great. Thank you.
Okay, I'll sure try. A youngster who's taking a 45-minute class, that class is $75 in monthly installments for a 10-month period. Plus there's the costumes are, if a student has a costume in the Christmas or in the holiday time in the spring, their costumes are somewhere around $70. And there are a couple of other fees associated with that. And a new student who's coming in saying they're doing tap or something that needs ballet slippers is probably going to cost about $150 to get them set up for that. So a student who's older, who's taking an hour-long class or a couple of classes, those classes are proportional. So an hour-long class a month is about somewhere around $100 a month, times that by 10. And then all those other fees apply to them as well.
Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you so much, Georgie, for being here today. Can you give us just a rough sense, perhaps in a percentage-wise, how many of your dance students come through this program and are supported with subsidies versus as other students?
Sure. My student body varies year to year and season to season. We usually have about 10 or 12 students who are accessing these funds, and there's usually about between 60 and 85 to 90 students in a period of time. So it depends, but pretty consistently, those families are around a dozen.
Thank you, Georgie, and it's wonderful that you provide that opportunity for those kids. I can imagine how much it means to them.
Another question, sure.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And so, Georgie, I don't know if this question's for you, but maybe to staff as well. So with the recreation fund, can that also be used in addition to some of the other funding models that are out there to support, say, low-income families that want to put their kids in sports? Can you combine them? Georgie, do you have any experience?
That's what we do. I have a list, which I'm happy to sit down and totally share with folks. And we figure out what is going to, they all have different criteria. So some people are eligible for some, or they're eligible in some periods and not others. So we sit down and see which are most likely to apply to each student, and we try to combine them where we can. And many of them are available, are not always available. So that's a tricky thing for sure.
Okay, thank you again,
Thank you.
Georgie. Are there any public questions today? Seeing none, I'll move on to our council inquiries. Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and with your indulgence, I have two questions today, and I see that Director Wiley's not with us, so perhaps I'll leave this question with staff, but we've asked about it many times before, but we're getting into spring now, so we're wondering about the 21-22 bridges and when the road work may be completed and when we can have our ribbon cutting ceremony, as we're anxious to get people crossing these bridges. And my second question, I think for Mr. Everett, we remember in budget that we made a determination not to continue with funding for the Apple Pie Trail. And we now have realized that we have some businesses who have committed to being participants in that Pie Trail. So I'm just wondering if I could ask what the procedure might be if there was any interest from council in doing, I guess, a reconsideration of that decision.
Thank you very much. Through Mr. Mayor to the Deputy Mayor. Just my quick review, because I was aware that this was brought up and was looking for some additional considerations. So procedurally, my understanding is through the budget process, the funding was not successful in the budget process. So there was a vote to not provide that funding. So council would require a motion to have a reconsideration. A reconsideration would need 5 of 7 to vote for that reconsideration, regardless of the number of council members that were there for the vote. I do have some background with the Apple Pie Trail, and the way that program has typically operated is for local businesses to take part in that and be members. The municipality in which they operate do require to be sponsors of that program. So I do believe there's a $2,000 ask for that membership. So if council wanted to reconsider that, and a motion to have that reconsideration would have to come forward and vote it. I will say the process does allow staff to then go back to see who voted in the prevailing for reconsideration. The mover of a request for reconsideration has to be on the prevailing side of the vote. So staff would have to go back just to make sure whoever was making that motion was on the prevailing side of that vote. Hopefully that's good information for council to consider.
Councillor Yurick.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And thank you, Deputy Mayor, for bringing that forward, because coincidentally, I discussed that with our CAO prior to the meeting, because I have been corresponding with Patty Kendall on this issue. I've asked her for some information on this, and I was planning to bring a motion reconsideration today.
Great, thank you. So that's all the inquiries we have. I think we'll move on then to our consent agenda. Items in this list have been before Committee of the Whole for discussion. Council may choose to pass these items and/or bylaws with one motion. A member may also request an item or items to be pulled for separate consideration. And I believe we have at least one and maybe two items here that should be pulled. Anyone want to make that, get that direction? Deputy Mayor?
Mr. Mayor, may I suggest we pull A? And I'm thinking about C.
Well, those are the two I'm thinking about, so let's let's do that.
Let's do that.
And I think there's a general agreement. So getting the first one on the table, the recommendation is that Council of the Municipality of Meaford, 1, direct staff to get quotes for replacing current barriers with TL1 barriers, safety barriers for 2026 budget. This is with respect to the Meaford patio program. And 2, direct staff to review the application/rules and regulations to align with building code and the Accessibility for Ontarians with Disabilities Act. Mover and a seconder for that. Moved by Councillor Forder and seconded by Councillor Yurick. It's on the table. Would you like to speak to that, Sean?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I can bring council some additional information in regards to the Meaford patio program. One, I'm happy to say that staff have moved forward and received pricing for a couple of the barriers that would be engineered or meet the requirements of those barriers. I can tell you that there's two ways that we could look at it in 2026. We could either purchase the two types of barriers, one being water-filled barrier. For us to purchase, it's about $29,000. The urban barrier, which are your typical concrete barriers, to purchase would be roughly $71,000. To rent, the water-filled barrier are around the 17,500, and then to rent the urban barriers, it's roughly $10,000. Want to be clear that that does not include the labor or the delivery costs. My recommendation moving forward, even though council's not really considering any direction necessarily today, it would be prudent for the town to rent those instead of purchase, just from a storage perspective, and just being able to have a contractor come in and deliver and install. Want to be very clear with the 2025, however, staff are still continuing to work on looking at, we want to make sure that the required barriers are in place. So that's something that this costing provides us good guidance in how to move forward for 2025 as well. I can also say that staff, we've had several meetings with staff in regards to the development of an actual process on how we consider patios. And I will be the first one to say in the future, the communication will be far more early in the process. I think if we had to do it over again, the discussions taking place would take place probably in September, October, the year prior to them moving forward into the next year. I feel confident that the recommendation that council has brought forward provides good direction for staff. It also provides staff the flexibility to work directly with the business owners. One thing that we talked about last week was rather than going back and forth through emails and receiving site plans and doing a tabletop review, I think there's a real benefit of actually meeting on site with the business owners to get a very clear understanding of what their requests are, and also having staff being able to outline what our requirements are. The one piece I will say that I've identified very early in the recommendation was we talk about the building code and the accessibility for Ontarians and Disabilities Act. The other piece that we have to be very mindful is the fire code as well. And that's something that with my reviews thus far, making sure that the fire department is involved in these applications, what's to be approved on site. The fire department plays a critical role, as well as those patios that are serving alcohol. The AGCO, the Alcohol Gaming Commission of Ontario, need to be involved in that as well, because it is an extension to liquor license when there's alcohol being served on the patio. So staff have taken the direction from council very seriously. I think staff has done some very good work over the last month or so, and the goal is to have a very formal collaborative approach to looking at Meaford patio program in the future. So making good strides, and look forward to working with those specific business owners to try to get this rectified and in place for the 2025 season. Thank you.
And here, Councillor Bell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, CAO. So on your comments about the barriers, and the recommendation is to lease them or rent them, put that in place for this year?
The goal is to have that in place for this year. It's a very similar program to what we have had in the past. The only real difference is there is about I believe an 8 or 10-inch difference in the base of the barriers this year. So when we take a look at what that does to the actual patio itself, that's the biggest difference between last year's and the previous 3 years to the barriers that are required, which are the T1 barrier difference.
Thank you. I'm all in favor of, enhancing safety. We're not wanting to do things as safely as we can as we proceed through this. So then for the money from that, we have access to something that we can tap into to get that looked after to that contractor.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Bell. This is typically what was done in the past. So from a budget perspective, I believe there is money available. But I look to Val for that guidance.
The T1 barriers would have to be purchased or rented this year. So no, they're not in the budget. Because we've just used the existing barriers that we've had parked at, I think it's 28 Nelson is where I think they store them for the winter. So we would have to find that I think it's about $10,000. 17 rental.
The concrete barriers rental would be the 10,000.
Yeah.
The 17 was the water filled barriers.
Yeah.
Councillor Bell.
Thanks again, Mr. Mayor. So Mr. CAO, do you need a direction from council to have staff investigate getting the finances in place for that? Because I think we would all like to have that in place.
Through Mr. Mayor to Councillor Bell, yes, having that direction that clearly identifies having staff come back to council with some proposed funding opportunities would be beneficial.
Councillor Urick.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So Sean, what was just mentioned there was the bases of these were wider. Is that going to impact anybody that has an existing patio that would have been used against last year's? I liked what you said. We should be reviewing it at the end of the year because that gives the proprietors plenty of time to prepare for the following year. Once again, the whole argument here was that we are right up against the time schedule now where they're planning. So how is that going to impact the existing patios that owners might have now?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Urick, it could. I would say the one in particular, there's a significant encroachment onto the sidewalk. So that encroachment could actually become more so on the sidewalk. This is why I think it's critically important that the meeting on site, so things can be measured out, so we have an understanding, because one of the concerns with my quick review has been the laneway, the access, not only to the businesses, but to the upper floor residential tenancy to make sure that EMS has access. So taking a look, and again, so it's not done just on a tabletop exercise, because I do believe on site, we may be able to come up with some solutions that actually allow things to sort of maybe be shifted a little bit to get distance, and that we're all speaking the same language, as opposed to sometimes interpretation over emails gets lost. So all efforts will be made to make sure that we can, see those patios. However, the key thing is making sure from a health, safety, and life safety, those aspects are looked after as well.
Deputy Mayor Keaveney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We heard, I'm sorry you weren't here, Sean, at the last meeting, we heard a lot of concerns from businesses who are not restaurants. So I'm just wondering, with this reconfiguration with the new barriers, does that help in any way so that we can perhaps gain a parking spot with the placement of these in relation to where the prior barriers were?
Through Mr. Mayor to the Deputy Mayor, I think gaining parking spots the way the original or the configuration has been, it really does take up a lot of the south side of the parking. Whether or not there's the ability to get breaks in those to have parking, again, it becomes a safety aspect. I think having breaks in it would be beneficial. I would say even a break in it for pedestrian crossing would be beneficial as well, just so you give a few more different access points for the public to go across. So we're looking at it from the standpoint of the last 3 years, it's been done one way. We don't want to reinvent the wheel, but we want to make sure, is there some things that we can do that enhance the overall pedestrian and, quite frankly, community experience with downtown. So we are blessed with a significant amount of parking at Market Square, but looking at how those parking spots along 26 corridor can be maintained will be something else that we will take a look at through this process.
Councillor Forder.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I have two questions. I'll just start with my first one, as it sort of relates to what we were just talking about. And I'm sorry if this was already mentioned, but in the report, it says limiting patio expansion beyond frontage. It only says we should ensure that patios are confined to the parking spaces directly in front of establishments. Does it say anywhere else in the report that is a certainty? Because I think when it says we should ensure, I don't know if that's going to be satisfactory to the non-restaurant business owners downtown.
Through Mr. Mayor to Councillor Forder, it's a great point. I think working with the groups, I want to be crystal clear that not only will the business owners that have the benefit of the patio will be involved, the neighboring adjacent businesses will be involved as well. Because a lot of the information that I've read, talks about, you have the ability to have a patio that is along the frontage of your storefront. And some patios do extend beyond. So again, it's taking a look at, what are the, what's the ability of having that patio there? If the adjacent business owners were okay with the extension, there's still a couple of the tests that we want to do. If council sees that there is a desire and a benefit to have parking spots gained through this process, that may mean that, no, you have the frontage. And like I've said to staff and me coming in new on this, it really becomes the town helping to facilitate the process. However, it's also going to be up to the business owner to identify at what point does it make business sense. Because I would assume if some of those storefronts have patios that are just in the frontage of their business, they may look at the cost, may not be worth the effort, or may just not make business sense. So it's hugely unfortunate, and I promise the council, the process will be more refined. It's unfortunate that we're in a position now that we're almost in May and we're having this discussion now. But we have to have the discussion just from the standpoint of being fair and transparent, and quite frankly, making sure that all parties are limiting their risk moving forward. So it is Highway 26 corridor. There's lots of traffic, and we want to make sure all those safety measures that are required, not ones that we are just saying, well, this is best practice, or, this is a nice to do. We will use the required legislative documents to identify what must be done, and to your point, what shall be done, as opposed to what can be done. Hopefully that's helpful.
Follow up?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you. And I really appreciate your comments, and I think it's reassuring for all the businesses downtown to know that there's going to be that flow of communication going back and forth, and that is extremely important. So thank you for saying that. So you mentioned best practice. One question I just had for discussion here is if, the cost of the new barriers. I have had some comments from tax-paying residents is, they live in Bogner and they don't go to the patio. So why should their taxpayer dollars support new barriers that they have zero interest in? And I'm not saying I agree with that. I'm just saying that these are things that I'm hearing in the community from rural residents. They're concerned that their taxpayer dollars are going to something like this. So what is best practice in other municipalities when they have to upgrade their barriers? Is that a taxpayer burden, or is that cost shared over the restaurants, for example? Maybe you could just give some comments so we could just have some perspective. Thank you.
Through Mr. Mayor to Councilor Ford, great question. The test that I'll be bringing forward is the Municipal Act, and making sure that the Municipal Act actually allows the municipality to provide funding, or does the funding have to go through some other entity? Typically, this is where, and I know there's a history with this, but typically this is something that a BIA would be a huge part of, because the BIA provides those types of opportunities for their businesses. I would say best practice, I would say that there would be a cost sharing element ultimately with the BIA, with the municipality, with the business owners, because to your point, taxpayers' dollars, I think, we always have a requirement to make sure that the use of taxpayers' dollars is done through a fair and transparent manner. So that, I know we've had lots of discussions internally. That's my test to be able to make sure that can we actually fund these? And then secondly, are we doing it in a fair and transparent manner? And is the benefit the overall community? Does the overall community see the benefit? And ultimately, has council directed staff to do that? And my goal is, my intention is for council to be able to be provided with the information to make that informed decision.
Councillor Bartley.
Thank you, Mayor Kettner. And I had much the same questions that Brandon had. One, should this be a tax levy thing? Or should it be the cost recouped from the restaurants? If they've got skin in the game, they may not even want a patio, because I've seen some of the patios were used extensively, some were not. So I think we should deal with that. I think CIP program might even be able to fund this community improvement plan. I think that's where the money might be able to come. It's already set aside each year. Doesn't affect the tax levy because that's set aside what you use it for. I think, but where I'm going with this is I don't know if we can wait another council meeting for you to bring back where we're getting it from. It'll be May 12th before we have decide that we got money and we're going, I think we should somehow make a decision today so that if it happens, staff has the ability to do it without, it's going to be the end of May before we get anything done. That's my opinion. Thank you.
Did you wish to respond to that, Sean?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and to Councillor Bartley. It would be hugely beneficial for staff if council were so indulged to provide that clear direction so we can move forward with the understanding that, having staff come back with, regardless of what happens with an information report, just so council is fully aware of the application process, the actual install process, costing and funding opportunity. So I'd welcome that direction.
Councillor Yorick.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I agree with all points. They're all salient. I guess a couple things. I'm gonna ask, do we know concretely, no pun intended, how many are actually signed up for this at this point? Do we know how many are gonna happen this year? But before we go there, when you talked about the shall versus should, and I appreciate that comment, Brandon, I guess my comment would be, this all comes down to cooperation between, and I'm glad you kind of intimated that it would be a cooperation thing between neighbors, because at the end of the day, there are certain businesses who do not value this and think that is a hindrance. There are businesses who see the value in it and believe that it is something that brings people to town and their businesses will benefit as a result. So if you have neighbors next to you who say, yeah, you can encroach a little on my parking spot because I think it brings people to town, yay, then it all comes about cooperation, and I appreciate the fact you're gonna go there. I guess from funding, and I agree with you, Steve, I think we should make some kind of an overture today. My comment would be is this still comes back to me to an ECDEV scenario where, and it comes down to about tourism. And I think that's been a real chink in our armor for many, many years because we have not put money towards tourism in any grand scheme at all. So to your point, Brandon, about the rural community, and I agree. There are many communities who would say that when you do this kind of thing to bring people into here, they are the same reason you do events. When people are coming in, they are stopping at rural places on the way, whether it be wineries, food markets, or various other things that rural provides, that if they weren't coming in town to do this, they may not be going through that anyway. So that when people look at tourism as the whole picture, it's not just about urban Meaford. It is about what are you doing to bring people into Meaford as a whole, and does that have an ancillary impact on the rural which people are traveling through to get there? So I think we need to look in terms of this as well. It's going to be 1 year to go on this council, and it's probably not going to happen in 2026. But I think long term, we have to really look at what we want to do with tourism, what kind of monies we want to put into that, and what that's going to entail to try and strengthen this community, urban and rural.
So I think this all boils down at this point to what kind of mechanism do we need? Like if we simply approve this recommendation, we're not going to move the needle on getting these patios open this summer. So we need some direction from staff as to how we can facilitate that.
As far as funding them, you could bring them from a reserve. There is the CIP, like Councillor Bartley said, or there is an economic development reserve, or there is the BIA reserve as well. So you have three options. You just have to tell us which option you would prefer, I think.
And that would be
all of them could probably fund it.
Yeah, so we need maybe an amendment to the recommendation. Somebody able to do that, Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would bring the suggestion forward then that we take the necessary funding from the Economic Development Reserve. Don't want to touch the BIA. I think that's very specific. I think the Economic Development Reserve would be where I'd like to see it come from.
I'm sorry, Counselor Yurick. Okay, perfect. Any discussion of the amendment? Counselor Bartley?
Do we have a total in the Economic Development Reserve and the CIP reserve? Val, sorry. And having said that, I know there's still $1 million in extra income that we got last year on our stock markets that we haven't really played with yet.
In the economic development reserve is 137,000. In the community, sorry. In the community reserve, there's 292, but there are some monies that have to come out for last year that hasn't had a journal entry. Yeah.
CAO?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just one suggestion, and happy to work with Val on this more. The BIA reserve is one that I would suggest probably would be the most appropriate, because it really goes back to Councillor Forder's point in regards to taxpayers' dollars. The BIA reserve will have been generated through the members of the BIA and not direct taxpayer funding. So I would say that would be the safest one to get this done quickly. I will take the opportunity to also identify if council wanted us to consider a cost sharing arrangement. Just because it's BIA doesn't mean that, I think Councillor Bartley had a great point about skin in the game. There might be the opportunity to work with the business owners as well and say, like, what's the percentage that we're willing to consider. So that's a second piece. It would be significantly different from the 2024 program. However, just food for thought and looking at opportunities. Not to say if you didn't do it in 2025, didn't mean in 2026, it's something that in a fulsome program we could look at. But that BIA funding is typically, I would say, right in line with what the BIA funding would typically be used for if there was an actual entity in place. Thank you.
So Deputy Mayor, you're moving an amendment to the, or at least an addition to the recommendation?
Yes, I had suggested the economic development, thinking of the tourism aspect that Councillor Yurick spoke to, but having heard our CAO, I will change the motion to take the necessary funding for renting these barriers from the BIA reserve.
And that's seconded, okay. Now, have you framed that into it? Is it a line 3 to this recommendation? Is that what it is?
Thank you, Mayor Kettner. I just have that the motion be amended to add a third clause to direct staff to fund the LT1 barrier rentals for 2025 from the BIA reserve.
Okay, that's clear and we've all heard it. So is there any further discussion or shall we vote? You ready to vote? All in favor? That's carried. Thank you very much. Councillor Bartley?
Thank you, Mayor Kenner. Just an afterthought. Staff is bringing a report back on this. And could that report include some cost sharing with the prospective restaurants? 50%, 20%? If they have skin in the game, they may want to do it, they may not want to. How important it is to them. Just a thought.
Through Mr. Mayor, Councillor Bartley, I think it's a great point. I would say probably be appropriate to have that in the report for consideration in 2026. Just there's a lot of scrambling right now, and I think doing this as soon as we possibly can will give those businesses an opportunity to see what makes sense for 2026.
Thank you. Yep. Okay, so we've already voted on that. Yeah. So did you want to make a comment?
Just a reminder, thank you, Mayor Kettner, that we do have to vote on the main motion if
Okay.
that's the time to go.
So that's right. We've voted on the amendment or the addition. Okay, so now are you ready to vote on the main motion? All in favor? Again, that is carried unanimously. I see where I have confused issues a bit. Typically, I think when we pull items on the consent agenda, we vote on them after clearing the others out of the way. So which would you prefer, Madam Clerk, that I change course or continue the course I'm on this occasion?
Thank you, Mayor Kettner. I think continuing the course that you're comfortable with at this time is
Okay.
great. Thank you.
So, and the next one is one that we also pulled. It's item C. Excuse me. The recommendation is that Council of the Municipality of Meaford direct staff to advertise the availability of municipal sites for refreshment vendors as outlined with a revised deadline of May 15 for 2025 only. A mover or a seconder for that, Councillor Forder and Councillor Urick. Thank you. Discussion of this item, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I just had one quick question because I think we had a really thorough conversation on this last meeting. So just for clarification, the applications are due May 15th and they'll be reviewed on the 16th. So conceivably a food truck then could be operational for the May long weekend. Am I correct in saying that?
Through Mayor Kettner to Deputy Mayor Keaveney, I believe that the intent is to move any applications as quickly as possible through the process, anticipating that that is a desired outcome.
Councillor Urick.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Page 23, exemptions 3.4. I saw refreshment vehicles operating with the downtown farmers market during the operation of the market with an approved and valid permit from public health. I remember something else. There was something else in there about scarecrow. So my question is, how are we addressing refreshment trucks that are part, I know there is a special license part of this as opposed to the annual. But I want to make sure that, for example, Christmas on the Bay, Scarecrow, Summerfest, they have it come in for one day, just part of the event. They're already paying an amount to, I know in Christmas on the Bay, they're already paying as a vendor to be part of that kind of arrangement. So are we kind of exempting them from this because they're a vendor in an event? Or are they being, how is that being done? Are we double dipping then? Because so they're having to pay twice, one to the event carrier holder as well as to us.
Thank you. Through Mayor Kettner to Councillor Urick, I don't know if Sarah wants to comment on the development of the special events bylaw and the process that's being undertaken. From a municipal property standpoint, I think what the bylaw, the proposed amendment is basically stating that if there's a special event in the area, that particular vehicle that has been authorized to operate on municipal property for the season isn't being asked to clear out. So that's what that is referencing. There is a special events permitting process that any refreshment vehicle would go through. As the work on the special events bylaw unfolds, staff are working towards figuring out how these two bylaws work together so that we're not duplicating or making one redundant. I don't know if that answers the question, but I'm happy to provide further clarification.
Yes, I just wanted to make sure we're taking into consideration that that's kind of a wrinkle on the general auspice of this. The other thing I wanted to bring up obviously was and I thank staff for looking into what other municipalities have done, and they're not charging them for being on municipal property. That's kind of an outlier for us. And again, we are talking about not putting in barriers for having food trucks, but other municipalities are not charging a fee for being on municipal land as they're being charged a fee for being there for the summer anyway. So I'm just wanting discussion on that as well.
Councillor Forder.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. And through you, to your point, Rob, yes, no, it doesn't seem like anybody else is charging fees. Certainly none of the neighboring municipalities in the county are doing that. So I think if we instituted a fee, and I understand the reasons why that was brought up at the last council meeting, but again, that would just be another barrier that would continue to deter refreshment vehicle vendors and just simply sending them to other municipalities. I had a couple of questions, but I'll just start with one is Under the proposed bylaw, the refreshment vehicle licenses expire annually on December 31st, but the new applications are not due until March 1st as proposed here. So we have a 2 to 3 month gap where refreshment vehicle vendors wouldn't have a license. So if we want to encourage year-round vendors, and I believe that I had asked this at the last meeting, and Margaret, I don't know if it was you that had mentioned you needed to look into things like snow clearing and liability and those types of things. So I just wanted to know if the needle was moved on that, so we have a better understanding, because I do know of some refreshment vehicle vendors that have expressed interest in being here year round. So to my point here is, should we change the application deadline so we don't have that 2 to 3 month gap where a refreshment vehicle wouldn't be able to obtain a license? So I'll just start with that for a comment. Thank you so much.
Through Mayor Kettner to Councillor Forder, thank you for the question. Just to clarify, the application date isn't March 1st. The applications can be as a rolling starting January 1st. It's just to operate on municipal property. That's the deadline of March 1st. So I would propose, if this is appropriate, that after the season or through the season, we are in touch with refreshment vehicles to ascertain those who may be interested in operating during the winter months. This isn't something we've done before. And as I had mentioned, there's a little bit of staff work to kind of understand from our perspective what would be appropriate to do that. I think maintaining that conversation and then addressing this late in the summer or early in the fall so we can understand how relevant that is as a question for the food truck providers in this area and what work would need to be done. We could make arrangements for that at that time for council's consideration. Does that help answer the question?
Yes.
Thank you. And through you. Yes, thank you for the clarification, Margaret. I really do appreciate that. And with the mayor's indulgence, if I can just ask another question is, I feel like it would be really helpful if we could see on a map where these proposed locations would be on municipal property. That is something I've had some potential vendors. They're just not sure. Their concerns are, is there 5 allocated spots? Are they all in the harbor, or are they spread out over the entire municipality? So there's a little bit of angst because they're not really sure. And for us, I don't think any of us know really where all those spots that have already been pre-approved. So that visual would be really helpful for us to understand. Yeah, thank you. I think that's all I had for that question. Thank you.
Go ahead, Margaret.
Thank you, Mayor Kettner. And to Councillor Forder, I'm thrilled to announce that we've been working with communications, and pending council's approval, everything's really ready to go to be posted tomorrow. So we didn't want to jump the gun on that, but as far as I am aware, we are ready to share that. And I apologize to the vendors for any angst that's caused. We were just trying to make sure that we followed the proper processes to be ready at the appropriate time. But going forward, as we've mentioned, there's no reason why this information can't be posted much sooner. We just didn't want to get ahead of ourselves in that process this year. Thank you.
Councillor Bartley.
Thank you, Mayor Kenner. I'm a little confused. So other towns aren't charging to use their property. Anyone I've seen has been on private property. I haven't seen on municipal property. Is there some on municipal property and they're not being charged other than their licensing fee? They're still paying their licensing fee, but not rent on the property. Where are there some on municipal property? Old Sound, everything I've seen Old Sound was always private property, so.
I've seen it in Wasaga Beach. Can I ask, has there been any consideration to the point that was raised by at least one operator about the efficacy of having a lottery? In other words, I think there was great interest in having a little more control over where they might end up in the municipality as a site. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Kettner. Just to clarify about the lottery process, essentially, and this is done in neighboring communities, which is sort of how we came up with the idea, but they'll express an interest for a position. So as I think I had mentioned previously, there are 3 spots at the harbor that have been assigned or identified by parks as viable good sites. So if you have an interest in a spot at the harbor, you could write, my first choice is spot A, and my second choice is spot B, and my third choice is spot C. And so the lottery really is if there's somebody who says, my first choice is also spot A. That's the only indication of time where we would have to hold a lottery in that instance, if there's competition for one spot. As I say, at the harbor, there are 3 different spots, and I would hope that that would be some sufficient opportunity for an appropriate amount of food vendors to be able to be licensed in that area. The lottery isn't for the spots collectively. So if nobody has an interest in a spot at the Inn and Ball Diamond, and that's one of the identified locations, then you're not going to be assigned there.
The
Does
the
that-
only thing I can foresee the possibility of 2 spots at the harbor competing for fish and chips, say, because they won it in a lottery. And in the meantime, if you really wanted a burger, you had to go to Memorial Park. I think that it's pretty hard to, foresee everything, but thanks for the answer. I didn't know that. Councillor Urick.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Page 28, I just clarification because 9.9 states refreshment vehicles located on municipal property are not permitted to offer alcohol for sale or consumption. The next 9.10 says they're permitted to sell alcohol on municipal property through a special events permit obtained through the alcohol. Those are fairly contradictory. Just want to make sure because I can say that a Christmas on the Bay, there was one, as Savvy had one last year as well, where they had like a vintner come in and do that. Just want to make sure that we're not setting a bar that's omitting that possibility. So I know it's gray area, but I just want to make sure we're clarifying.
Thank you, through Mayor Kentner to Councillor Urick. Specifically, we had worked with the municipal enforcement team to ensure that the wording wasn't contradictory, and that is to provide for the special events permitting, anticipating that special events would want that type of offering. I think in the covering report initially on the 7th of April, there was quite a detailed description about what we would have to do in order to advance sales on municipal property in general. It's sort of a different process that we'd have to undertake, and I would recommend that we do some extensive community engagement if that's a path we wanted to go down, but we certainly didn't want to preclude special events from having that type of licensing. So just to your point, instead of being contradictory, it's certainly trying to provide both of those options there, not only to avoid having the next step in that, but also to make sure that during special events, a special events permit could be obtained.
Deputy Mayor Keaveney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to come back to the point that I can't get past, which is a reiteration of municipal land being available free of charge for food trucks. We just talked about restaurants potentially putting some skin in the game to pay for a portion of or all of barriers to set up their patios, but yet we say food trucks, no charge. And I understand that's what the other municipalities are doing, and that's the position that we're in, but I can't think of anything else that is free to happen on municipal lands. If you want to have an event at the harbor, you've got to rent the pavilion. If you want to put your trailer on municipal land, you've got to pay a fee for that. But not for this. So I'm struggling to get my head around the thinking behind that. But I also wanted to come back to the point about perhaps year-round food trucks, because this happened last year where we had a food truck owner who asked if they could store their food truck on municipal land, in the off season. So I just don't want us to get caught in a position of having to not only provide free land, but also store these vehicles for free. So I just want to make sure that there are clear deadlines and that those are enforced and that we don't get caught in any of those situations.
Seal.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And to the Deputy Mayor's point, when I look at this, you're exactly right about, using town land. I think at this point, the fact that there's a fee, it's a small amount, but there is an amount tied to the town property. I do believe that there's some opportunity in the future when I read the recommendation that's for 2025. I do believe this screams to me the ability of doing an RFP that identifies here are the sites. do you want to submit a proposal for the sites? We can then look at to see what is, and my recommendation would we would come up with a reserve bid for each specific location, and submitters have to meet the reserve, but it also creates a bit of a competition. And through an RFP, we can be very clear, and council can be very clear of what you will and what you won't permit the sale of. So it can be, you know, different for every different site, but there's a clear agreement for each site. I know some municipalities have went through this process. However, you know, some processes you get nobody to submit. And I would say then maybe the reserve bid is too much. Each site could actually be a 12-month of the year, could be a 6 months of the year, could be a 3. You can really set it up, but it can also be for multiple years. I would be making the recommendation, do a 3-year. Make it so that the investment is worth their while. But it, again, very similar to the patio. It's a very formal process. It is a fair and transparent process. Just because you put a request in, you're not necessarily just going into a hat. Your proposal is being reviewed and making sure that all of the requirements are being fulfilled. And that's where you can get into the special occasion permit stuff. It would be tied to the municipal alcohol policy of what properties are actually available for the sale of alcohol, what's not. And just being crystal clear, whatever you're the successful bidder on, your expectations are crystal clear. Our expectations are crystal clear. And I think there's a real benefit of, you know, a 3-year with maybe a 2-year plus 1-year extension available just to keep the incentive there. So I think there's lots of opportunity with this, especially when Meaford there seems to be interest in that type of business in Meaford. I would say Meaford is probably blessed with that as opposed to other municipalities that I'm familiar with, that there just isn't the interest in it. This municipality, there seems to be an interest in it for sure. So just formalizing the process again would be beneficial, I think. Thank you.
So I think I'm going to ask you if, councillors, if you want to make any changes to this at all, or are you ready to vote on this recommendation as it stands? Go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think all we can do is just add in the recommendations, as our CAO just reflected, that there will be a review of process moving forward into 2026 with perhaps you'd like to put some more formal words to that, Sean or Margaret, but just reiterating the CAO's comments and making sure that we have that included in the recommendations here.
Yes.
Thank you. And through Mayor Kentner to the Deputy Mayor, I would probably commit that that's part of our work plan as this process unfolds. I think it's really important to understand where we take this and report through the process or at the end of it to understand what we would do differently and could explore different opportunities for 2026 is certainly something that we don't need formal wording for if you're comfortable with that.
Okay. So then I'm going to call the vote. All in favor? And that is carried unanimously. Thank you. Item D, the recommendation is be it resolved that bylaw 2025-23, being a bylaw to amend Schedule A3 of bylaw 053-2012 to license, regulate, and govern the owners and drivers of businesses within the municipality, be taken as read a first, second, and third time and finally passed. Mover and a seconder. Councillor Bell and Deputy Mayor Keaveney. Discussion on this one. Being none, I'm going to ask if you're ready for the vote. All in favor? And that is carried unanimously as well. And then item E, the recommendation is to be it resolved that bylaw 2025-24, being a bylaw to amend fees and charges for municipal services, programs, and facilities for the year 2025, Schedule K, be taken as read a first, second, and third time and finally passed. Mover and a seconder for that. Councillor Forder and Councillor Uhrig. Discussion on this one. And I am seeing no questions, so I'm going to call the vote. All in favor. And that is carried unanimously. And then I'm going to go back to very important item B. The recommendation is, be it resolved that bylaw 2025-22, being a bylaw to authorize the use of alternative voting methods, telephone and internet for the 2026 school board and municipal election, be taken as read a first, second, and third time and finally passed. A mover and a seconder, Councillor Bell and Councillor Bartley. Discussion of this item. I think we had a really good discussion at our meeting last week, so I'm going to call the vote. All in favor, and that is carried unanimously. Thank you. So now we move to items for consideration. And the first one, the recommendation is that Council of the Municipality of Meaford 1 support in principle the further review of the number of participating municipalities that are required for a hybrid planning service delivery model to be cost effective and provide efficiencies while offering strong customer service to lower tier municipalities, and direct staff to notify the County of Grey of this resolution. Mover and a seconder for that. Councillor Forder and Deputy Mayor Keaveney. Questions here, or Councillor Bell?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. So in the report, it basically clearly said that the County of Grey would really like to have all of the municipalities in the lower tier participate in this. I think I gleaned from it that that would be more cost effective, maybe more efficient when you have one or two that may opt out. I have said on this originally, with all the development which is happening here in our municipality and primarily in the town, that I would not like to see a gap of communications between applicants and moving things forward. The report said about, establishing satellite positions or spots where folks can go. I guess my real point is, from those that maybe attend Grey County on the session that was there, I was unable to attend that one. If we did not sign on to do this, what kind of implications does it make then for us retaining our own planners and sort of the finances of the efficiency of it all? Was that expressed that we can figure out whether we should sign on to this or whether we should retain our own and be independent?
I think I'm going to invite CAO Everett.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and to Councillor Bell's points. When I was asked to comment on this report, I've been involved in the discussion of this probably from its inception. I believe there's a fine line as to when this makes sense and when it doesn't, and quite frankly, when it's doable. So my proposed wording in the report and my proposed sort of perspective was really having the county consider at what point do the number of municipalities no longer make sense for this to be considered a regional planning department. I believe my way of thinking has always been, if there wasn't at least 8, it really starts to question of whether or not it could be the right thing to do. I believe right now, through just seeing the decision of different communities, I think we're at 7 right now. So I'm really starting to question, and quite frankly, I'd like the county to really identify, when you look at your hubs and the way they propose the hubs, without a couple of those key municipalities, does this make sense? The reason I say and make the recommendation to say in principle we support the review is, and I've been on the record before, I believe there are a number of opportunities where regional makes sense. I think over the last 10 years in particular, I think we're in a position where municipalities just can't do everything on their own anymore. There is only one taxpayer. And I think that the county, and quite frankly, our neighbors, looking at shared services is something that we're all going to have to really wrap our heads around. The planning services was identified at the time because it was extremely hard to recruit planners into municipalities. Most of the municipalities in Grey County had a deficit of their overall staffing composition in the planning department, and a lot of the municipalities where they were able to find planners, their planners were working remotely. And when the review was done, it looked as though if you were to look at a regional planning program, the planners that were employed within the municipalities of the county, you actually had enough planners. So looking at regional, does it make sense? I think there's always the benefit of having consistent planning fees throughout the community. So rather than go to municipality A, where the planning fees are X, you go to municipality C and the planning fees are different. It would allow for some consistency. So for me, having the county come back and say, we've done the review and we need 6 municipalities, or you know what, we needed 8 at a minimum. This doesn't work anymore. Allows for them to go back. My suggestion was to focus on the number of municipalities that were required, just so that process can be complete. And who knows, maybe look at other services that would be, okay, this one maybe didn't make sense, but maybe another one does make sense. So that's why my suggestion on the way the recommendation was worded really focused on the number of municipalities. Hopefully that's helpful.
Councillor Yuri.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm just curious whether your 7 included Meaford or not.
It included Meaford, yes.
Okay. So then my question is, because on page 51, when they talked about 3.1, to Councillor Bell's point, when they talked about the hubs, because we were originally, it was going to be a Blue Mountain Meaford hub. Blue Mountains obviously opted not to do this, so that was removed. So now they're abandoning the hub model, and then that comes right back to, can we efficiently, relying on the county, provide enough front counter, public facing attention? Or are we going to be, particularly because we do have so much growth on the books, are we going to be doing a disservice to our own developers and public, forcing them to go to the county? So that's the really, really big question. The other one to me was totally still financial. At the end of the day, they're not at this point, and I totally appreciate that without knowing the number that are going to participate, but they're not coming back with any financial estimates whatsoever. So we're putting a huge leap of faith that this is actually going to save us money and not cost more money. And particularly, Sarah has brought up a number of times with how are they handling staff that may be redundant, and now are we dealing with severances? How there are so many permeations of this that are questioned. I just can't look at it favorably yet without a lot more information.
Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll just start by saying I'm in favor of the recommendation. Let's not kill this yet. Let's just see where things progress to. But I wanted to ask in relation to the last paragraph on page 2, the planning efficiencies discussion paper from the county. I'm curious to know if we've implemented some or any of those recommendations, and have they made a difference, or is there potential for us to consider more of those recommendations that could assist our planning department in perhaps the efficiencies as discussed that might have some influence in where we go as a municipality with this request to join the county?
I think Denise is prepared to
Yes,
give us some
yeah.
assistance too.
I was waiting for the secret signal to come to the podium. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So there, from my memory, I mean, I wasn't prepared to answer that question, so I don't have a list of all of the efficiencies that were proposed, but there were a bunch of recommendations. Some of those were to take advantage of tools under the Planning Act, such as delegating certain things to staff. An example would be minor bylaws could be delegated to staff. Another is consents can be delegated to staff. Some of the municipalities have moved forward with some of those recommendations or we're doing them already, and some have not. We have not started to do that. It is in part of our recommendation report coming in a little while with some planning efficiencies that we're proposing that would need official plan amendments in order to trigger those. As far as the ones that the county themselves could take advantage of, my understanding was one of the examples they have been starting to implement, and that is things like scaling back the amount of staff review that the county planners are doing on, say, a minor variance. So in the past, we were getting pages and pages of review by, say, a planner at the county, and then this local staff person, the planner, was also doing a review based on county and local policies, Meaford policies, for example. And it was a duplication, especially when it didn't come up with any specific recommendations because it's for someone's deck or something small. The county has just recently implemented a much more scaled back version. So they'll likely only be commenting where there's, say, something like a county road or some other county matter, like they might be adjacent landowner or something like that, that would have an impact directly. So they've started to do that, but it's at the very beginning stages. I would say maybe less than 2 months for those types of changes. There were a bunch of changes that were suggested by the planner that worked for the county that authored that report. And that included going to each of the lower tiers, just for your background, each of the lower tiers to say, hey, have you tried this? Are you working with that? And ask us what we're doing to implement some of the potential efficiencies. So that report was based on collaborating with the municipalities as well. And so we think there probably are some great tools within that report that we can start leveraging. We may be even doing it on our own or starting to, but my thought would be that we could maybe continue on and build on that maybe regardless of the the county planning model, they still could be implemented, and they could be implemented at both levels. Or if there were a county planning model, they would still be implementable. An example of that would be still, for example, delegating a hold removal for a subdivision. It's time, they've signed the agreement. Now we're going to remove the hold. That could be delegated to staff to complete, but that could be done either way, regardless of what happens with this planning model.
Give us a follow up there.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. No, I appreciate all of that, Denise. Thank you. And I just wanted to further ask, just for clarification, in terms of our planning staff at the moment, do we have one vacancy at the moment?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So we have a vacancy just on the assistant level. So now that we've got approval for the planning technician, it's the planning technician role that's vacant, but we have a full planning staff. So we have 2 planners and a manager of planning. They're all filled.
That's good to hear. So with a fulsome planning staff, I'm just curious to know, Denise, thinking of last fall, should any one of those staff members, need some time for whatever reason, do you feel that with that fulsome staff that we're in a position now where things wouldn't or shouldn't fall behind?
To you, Mr. Mayor, to the question. So it's a great question in terms of whether we should fall behind because of staffing. One of the issues that we've still struggled with is, that engineering and the technical side of the planning work. So most of the things that have fallen behind in the past were related to sort of those technical design considerations versus we just haven't got a zoning bylaw written or things like that. My understanding from how things continued on in the fall was they created a bit of a stopgap by consulting out some of the projects. A couple of projects got consulted to our consulting engineering firm, Ainley. So we had a planner at Ainley pick up some of those projects. We could still do that if that ever came up again. But with 3 folks, we probably don't need to. I mean, we were in an extraordinary time last year. And so, we don't anticipate those happening, but there are always options available to figure out a way to get planning, whether we borrow a planner from somewhere else or whether we just reassign the work.
Thank you.
I don't see any other hands up. I'm just going to throw out from my own position. I feel that the recommendation is sort of prolonging the agony for Grey County. I think that what I like about what we have now is that even if things go south, it's on us and it's up to us to fix it. If they go south at the county, we don't have a lot of control. So my thought is that we should give serious consideration to actually telling the county that we think we're out at this point. And I think that if Town of Blue Mountains was in, I'd have an entirely different point of view. Because I think we could work together and do fine. But anyway, that's my thought, and hopefully that'll spark some more discussion. Sean?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I'm not a proponent of either or. I think when we were looking at this from a CAO perspective, it was really about the ability to recruit and retain. The one piece I just want to be crystal clear on for council as well as the public who are watching, the regional planning program did not take the authority or approval out of the municipality. The municipality would still retain all of its approval. You just wouldn't have a Meaford planner presenting. It would be a County of Grey planner that was presenting to council of Meaford. And I think that's been lost in this whole thing where you like the county would still have theirs, but if it is a delegated to the municipality authority, then that planner would be presenting to this municipality's council, and this municipality's council would be making their decision based on the planning report. So the municipality would not lose its planning authority. I know it's been played a few times of, well, it's just you lose everything. That was never, ever the intent. It was strictly about making sure that there was enough planners, especially with the Planning Act and the changes to the timeframes. It's hard for any municipality to meet those new time requirements. And that was why the original plan was to have the hubs, so that those planners would still have time in each of the municipalities. So if it was a planning file in Meaford, that person could still come in and talk to a planner in Meaford. Really the big difference was that planner was a county planner who, quite frankly, when we talked about it, was probably the planner who was in Meaford anyways. Knowing that there was lots of obstacles, it was just at the time the service that from the retaining perspective as well as the recruitment was probably the highest priority to sort of rectify. So hopefully that's helpful just from the perspective of the municipality was not giving up any of its control on the planning side.
Our problem isn't so much the control as it is managing. And I just find that we can figure out how to manage our own planning department, but we can never greatly influence managing the county planning department, is my point. Councillor Urick.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So you're right. and I'm not as concerned about the modicum of control. I am more worried about customer service. That's A, and finance B. So my question, I guess, would be if we were to take this to the next logical step and say, yeah, let's keep finding out. So Blue Mountain's out, if they now get to the point where they say, yeah, I've got 7 or I've got 8, whatever that number is there a plan where they're actually going to sit down and say, okay, we know that that's going to require X and that will equal that amount of money that we can compare against our own planning? Where is that in that whole equation? Are they waiting for, it's hard to commit without knowing finance, but are they waiting for a commitment to do that? So it's kind of a rock and a hard place here. So does this just get us to one step closer to finance before a decision we can make a decision logically? That's really big with me.
Councillor Bartley? Oh, sorry.
Through Mr. Mayor to Councillor York, I would say it's a very tough situation because the financing is going to be definitely dependent on the number of communities. I think from the Planning Act perspective, the benefit there is you have to meet a required time frame. So a customer service perspective, are you meeting the timeframes that the province has laid out? That's the baseline. If you want to, do better, then that's another piece. But at the end of the day, with the Planning Act, there's no award for being quicker. It's just, can you meet the deadline? And I know the fear at the time was, how could any municipality meet those timeframes? So if there's 5 or if there's 7 municipalities, I think the funding greatly is impacted by that. I will say, though, that we have to remember planning fees are what we're talking about here. And, council and the county has the ability to set the planning fees. And, having that consistent planning fee, I think would be very, very beneficial. I would say regardless, we want to take a look at our planning fees and making sure that, council understands and sets what is the guideline that council wants our planning fees to be based on from a cost recovery. And if it's 75%, if it's 35%, whatever, doing that study that very clearly identifies where we are today, and that would then go through the detail of what does our planning process look like? Is there duplication? Can we speed it up? Are we missing things? I think getting that idea of what we're satisfied with from a planning fee cost, because again, should the taxpayer pay for planning fees? That's a great debate. So doing that, I think either way, and I know that was something that the county was going to have to do if you were to take a look at regional planning. What did that do to the planning fees? So there's lots of work either way. While I have the mic, and just to speak to Ms. Whaley's point about the delegated authorities and that whole efficiencies, I want council and the public watching to also understand delegated authority to staff also means that there's less being decided by council. It will speed things up. There is no question. I just, at every opportunity, you're going to hear me just remind council that the delegated authority, lots of people don't like the idea because there's less that comes to council for consideration. Not that staff's doing anything wrong. They've been delegated that authority, but more things will get through, and you'll hear more from the public saying, how did that get approved? Staff is going to come back and say, well, that was within our delegated authority. So when we talk about planning efficiencies, lots of times what we're talking about is quicker timeframes, and that quicker timeframes comes with less consultation with council. So you'll hear me say that a lot because I've seen it in my past. That often gets forgot about when council's giving delegated authority. Once it's given, we're sort of always behind that, where the community consultation and collaboration, when we talk about delegated authority, that actually has to be communicated so well for the public, just so they understand, when decisions are being made, staff isn't overstepping its delegated authority that council has provided to staff. So I know I'm preaching to the choir to this group, but it's more so for the public who are watching that understands what we mean about delegated authority.
That's important. Thank you. Thank you. Councillor Bartley, did you have a comment?
Thank you, Mayor Kentner. I honestly don't know which way I want to go on this because we don't have enough information. And I don't know how many times a year we hear we should start sharing services. So like, as far as I'm concerned, I think we should put it back to the county and see what they come up with for logistics, for costing. I can't make a decision. I can't make a decision to cut it now because I don't have enough information. I can't make a decision to go with it because I don't have enough. I think it should go back and they feed us this information for us to make a educated decision on this.
Councillor Bell.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Of all of the municipalities that form Grey County, we, the municipality of Meaford, have got the most important, and yet it is peculiar, the pump storage facility. We have had a motion from our deputy mayor. We're working through that. We've had our planner also give some support to that motion. And if we were to say, well, let's buy in then to Grey County, and then others pop onto the scene, as it were, we could actually be setting it back and not moving forward with the knowledge that we have at this time, and we would lose something. And I think that just from the aspect of the corporation that would like to move forward on that major proposal, I have no idea, I do not have any idea whether that proposal group has had any conversations at Grey County. I don't know that. Maybe the mayor and deputy mayor do. But I just see that it is so important to us to maintain a degree of continuity, that we've been working through this and we're still working through this. And there are questions that we have and more questions to come. And we have been able to remain focused and we've remained dedicated. And I think that if we were to decide to go to Grey County, my view on it is we might lose something and we might cause some delay. And there's other adjectives that I could use, but I don't want to use those adjectives. I think that for us, and when I heard Denise, you gave your comments on you know, what the deputy mayor brought forward and something which is outside the normal things of the Planning Act and the so on that we've heard, and you gave some sound comment on that. I think we'd lose it. And so just from the aspect of not having enough information, from Councillor Urick saying about what kind of money, what kind of costings are going to be, I have a basic punchline. Bigger's not always better. And I can just see that if this isn't going to cost us less. I have no idea, again, at Grey County, if you sign on to be an employee at Grey County and you're a planner, my little own thinking here is that if you're a planner at Grey County, Denise, if you get there, you probably will get a little bit more money. And that would be, as an individual to you, good for you as a planner, you can, you know, but I can see that happening. I might be really wrong on that. But I think that as far as costings go, I think that would go up. And what makes it attractive as a planner? To work at an upper level, I would think. Because Councillor Urick and I at Grey Sauble, we have planners that are there. And we hear the comments from the CAO there. It can be a struggle to fill those positions. And I take it, it's not because we don't have skilled individuals, it breaks down to the paycheck. And we've had that. So my point on this, fellow councillors, is I think I would like to stay the course. And if we can tell Grey County that from the conversation that I've heard, I would like us to retain our own planning department. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And just a couple of quick points. As our CAO has referenced in the efficiencies report, there's a suggestion to delegate some authorities. So I'm guessing maybe one of those might be H1s. And I look at those and think, can't remember when we've ever really even discussed an H1. We were those holding symbols, we all have our hands up and they carry through. So I'm not sure that you know, we'd miss those discussions at this table. But you know, I sit here with my municipality of Meaford hat on, and of course at the county we have our county hats on. So we've heard lots of discussion there, as has been referenced, about the desire to share services. I mean, the province is looking for upper tiers and lower tiers to have these collaborative conversations, because we know at some point, depending who the Premier of Ontario is, there may be discussions about more amalgamations. But if we can show that we are, working together and that that's successful, then, that may prove favorable for us. So I think, we have to continue at the county level, the discussions about shared services, whether it's this or whether it's something else. I think those are going to be ongoing conversations that we're going to have at that table and this table. But I do agree with Councillor Bartley that until we see the financials, until we see the numbers, we don't really have enough information today to say we're in or we're out. And I know a couple of other lower tiers have made that decision, but I think in my mind, we're not there yet because we're a council who takes finances very, very seriously. And if the county can prove that there are efficiencies in that regard, then I think, we need to keep open minds and consider that. But until we have that information, we just can't make that decision.
Mr. Mayor, I don't have it. I just jumped up in case there was a question, but
Okay.
thank you.
Councillor Forder.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you, a little late to the conversation, but I just wanted to say that what's been said here really does echo my sentiments, particularly the deputy mayor. I'm not exactly sure which way I want to go on this long term, but we do need more information. So I'll be supporting this in principle so we can learn a little bit more about what this might look like.
Okay, and at this point, I think I'm going to call the vote unless there's any further input. So I'm going to perhaps read this again. The recommendation is that Council of the Municipality of Meaford, 1, support in principle the further review of the number of participating municipalities that are required for a hybrid planning service delivery model to be cost-effective and provide efficiencies while offering strong customer service to lower-tier municipalities. And 2, direct staff to notify the County of Grey of this resolution. All in favor? That's carried unanimously then. The next item is the letter of support for Family Health Team. The recommendation is that Council of the Municipality of Meaford approve the proposed letter of support for the Northeast Grey Health Clinics attached as Appendix 1 and acknowledges the letter of supporting being included in a formal submission of proposal to the call for proposals. Mover and a seconder for this. It's moved by the Deputy Mayor Keaveney and seconded by Councillor Uhrig. Discussion on this. Go ahead, Sean.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I bring this report forward. Council, you've had the indulgence of having this report prior. This is a really good opportunity for the municipality to be able to provide a letter of support for the extension of a family health team. I've been on the physician recruitment and retention portfolio for quite some time in the county. Family health teams are definitely something that would improve the ability of our area to recruit and retain family physicians. This is an opportunity that I believe had been brought forward previously and no application had been made. A lot of work had been done, but my understanding is the application wasn't submitted. This round, I think would be an opportunity, and we know that we have a willing group that wants to lead, and the municipality can simply, provide assistance where possible, but also providing the letter of support. I look to Deputy Mayor Keaveney if she has any additional information from other local partners. But the report identifies sort of the outline of a family health team. It's something that this area is, in my opinion, is in desperate need of to be able to move the needle on recruitment, retention, and retaining. So with that, I'll open it up. And Madam Deputy Mayor, if you have any additional comments.
If I may, Mr. Mayor, thank you very much. And I really appreciate that introduction, CAO Everett, because yes, the family health team is really critical. And that would take in the area of Meaford and Thornbury. There was a delegation to Roma last year that I was part of, and a request was made to expand the Owen Sound Family Health Team. And that has not been successful. And that team has said that they do not have the capacity to support the Meaford Hospital in the Meaford Thornbury area. So we're now in a position of having the opportunity to make this request to the province. They have released some funding, and there will be additional tranches if for any reason we're not successful this time, but the hope certainly is that we will be. They will be servicing 300,000 patients this time around, and we know that we have a significant number of orphan patients in Meaford and in the Blue Mountains area. We know that a few years ago, there was a survey done of our pharmacists, and we found at that point that there were 3,000 orphan patients, and there will be more than that by now. And many people here keeping their doctors where they came from, whether that was Oakville or Guelph, Toronto, wherever they are. So that poses a significant risk for those patients to acquire primary care. And it's also a huge risk for our hospital, because I know that our doctors are just on the edge now, struggling to keep our hospital ER staffed. And a family health team would go a long way towards ending that issue, because the new doctors coming out of medical school, that's the type of environment they want to work within. They want to have the support of that team. So I very much appreciate, Mr. Everett, you providing the letter of support that's included here with the report, but I would like to make a request, if I may, which came from Dr. Bukowski, who is our champion doctor. And there are a group of doctors working on this application. And as is typical of the province, the timeframe is short. It has to be in by May the 2nd. So not a lot of time, but it would be helpful, if you're open to it, Sean, to add a couple of things to the letter as provided. And I have made those suggestions to you, but just for council's knowledge, we need to reflect in the letter that it really is a family health team that we are requesting support for, because there is a list of other opportunities included in the application process. And we need to mention that we want to secure access to primary care for as many residents as possible. And a family health team would encourage the attraction of also allied health professionals to the region, such as dietitians, therapists, nurse practitioners, foot care specialists, and so on. And I think it's also for your consideration, Mr. Everett, to mention the growth in our area, because we know for every 500 homes that are built, that's a doctor. If you assume 2 people in a home, 500 houses, that's 1,000 people, and that sometimes is more than the roster of family physicians typically these days. So if we look at even just in our own approval process, we've got something like, I'll look for Bart to nod, 1,600 homes. So that's, pushing 2 doctors along with the orphan patients that we have. And also we have to look at the number of doctors who are nearing retirement. They say in Ontario, 1 in 5 are looking to retire in the next 5 years. And in our particular area, I think that ratio would be even higher. So the need is great. And I think making mention of the growth that is here, and being in, recognizing Blue Mountains as well, because it's a joint application, and Mr. Everett will be very, very familiar with what's happening at Blue Mountain and what's happening in that community, and also with the pump storage project. That's going to bring in a tremendous workforce, and we need to make sure that we have, primary care physicians here to service that. So in my mind, that's another doctor. So if we look at the current need, which we assume to be somewhere between 8 and 10 doctors, we really, really need this family health team to be successful for us, so that we can work on that recruitment. So I will leave those comments with Mr. Everett, and I will look to you to speak to that, Sean, if you want to talk about any additions to this particular letter as provided, and do we think that we can have that ready before May the 2nd?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Deputy Mayor Keaveney. Yes, with the benefit of being provided that verbiage, I can have that turned around by tomorrow for sure, to make sure that it's the letter of support is ready to go for Mayor Kettner to sign off on. I think the growth is something that being able to identify that we are such an area of high growth, and also compared to the actual demographics. So being able to identify in the letter of support, and again, whether it's at AMO, the opportunity to ask for another delegation with Ministry of Health, just to be able to really push the number of pressures that are on the municipality and the region, I think is every opportunity we should be identifying that. Lastly, I think it's, what doesn't get talked about a lot, I would say doctors that have been practicing for 20, 25 years, I think what we were going to find is those doctors, those physicians, the size of their rosters are so significantly more than what the doctors that are coming out and starting practices. I know some doctors have rosters of 1,500, 2,000 patients, and I think what we would find is a lot of doctors coming in now, they're setting up practices of between 300 and 500. So a doctor doesn't equate to the rosters anymore. I think it's a whole different aspect, and I think doctors now are also looking at the opportunities for hospitalists, and that's a game changer in family health physicians, because it is very profitable to be able to be a hospitalist as opposed to a family doctor. So getting that information out to the public, I think, is really, really important. And just understanding that, as a doctor retires today, it's probably not a replacement doctor 1-for-1. I think it's probably more of at least 3 doctors to replace the roster of one that's retiring. So that's another aspect that we have to really pay attention to. So thank you for that opportunity.
So I'm going to call the vote. All in favor? And that's carried unanimously. Thank you. Quick question here. We've been sitting for 2 hours. I would like to spend a little time on the next item, overview of strong mayor powers. Some of the other items are just really, housekeeping. And then we have a couple of things too that we do have to debate. But I would appreciate a little bit of debate on this subject. And so I wonder if we just call a 5-minute recess and come back at 3 o'clock with a debate on the strong mayor powers. So I'm going to adjourn us for 5 minutes only. for information purposes. And while this is basically just receiving Sean Everett's report, I think it is also an opportunity that we should take as a council to discuss strong mayor powers. I know it's a hot topic out there, and I certainly have strong opinions on it, and I'm sure other people do. So I think maybe we should turn it over to you, Sean. You authored the report. No.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, and council again has had the indulgence of the report. I do want to take the opportunity that even though my name's attached to the report, I want all the credit to go to our acting clerk. She's done a phenomenal job of collecting the information. She is a wealth of knowledge when it comes to this, and I know when we've looked at bringing this report, and you touched on it wonderfully, this is really the opportunity for council to have the debate. I think, there's been lots of information shared on the strong mayor powers. I think the report does a fabulous job of really identifying what it means. And I think this is a great opportunity for council to have the discussion about what it means for the 7 members of council. So I'll pass it over to you. If there's any questions, staff will try to provide additional information. And I just look forward to listening to the discussion. So thank you for that.
Okay, well, just throw it on. I'm going to go to Councillor Bell first.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Fellow councilors, we all get these publications, and I went back and I keep them all, and I found articles written by Mr. George Cuff, who in the article says is the governance zone expert. I'm going to just do 3 or 4 small paragraphs that he have on the subject of strong mayor. The mayor's voice carries clout. While the mayor is elected in most Canadian municipalities as one of, their impact is far greater than 1 vote or 1 councillor. The mayor has the power of deference accorded to the position by the public and generally by the other members of council. The mayor's voice has considerable clout, as it is. Council decides together. Our democratic institutions require a majority vote before decisions can be enacted. Neither the mayor nor any other member of council can legitimately say, I made that decision for the community. No one, until the recent strong mayor legislation in Ontario, can decide much of anything without going through their council, seeking a majority vote by their colleagues. The role confusion. Administrators who attempt to slide into the governance will find that their careers are shortened and their impact is negated. Those who are elected to govern and now wish to also try their self-perceived brilliance at managing, the same befalls them. The results, an imbalance. An imbalance of power seldom ends well. Until the strong mayor powers imposed by the province of Ontario on certain municipalities, it could be safely said across Canada that every mayor relied on their ability to work with their elected colleagues in accomplishing the agenda established by the full council. A sense of congeniality was critical, as well as the capacity of the mayor to be in power but not to bathe in it. The mayor is the team leader, and while they are often somewhat greater importance than their colleagues, they can never have to rely on that assumption, but they move the levers of power with the help of their colleagues. And finally, it meant so much to me in the report, I jotted this last line down. This is a substantial shift in municipal governance with direct implications. It can eliminate a majority of council's vote, and a blur will occur in the lines of directing and those who do. Mr. Cuff, I think, has hit it all on the head. Mr. Mayor, I just use that as an opening segue, as I know we all have something to say on this. So thank you for letting me read those few
Oh, my pleasure.
paragraphs.
I've quoted Mr. Cuff often when I was running for mayor, and I have great respect for him and certainly agree with what he says there. Councillor Bartley.
Thank you, Mayor Kettner, and this is nothing to do with Mayor Kettner, because I know how you feel on this. This is a travesty. It wouldn't happen in Meaford, but you might as well get rid of the 6 councillors. And can you imagine some of the mayors out there or some of the mayors past, if that was, years ago, what would happen to municipalities? This is wrong. I've passed it up through the ranks and actually personally told Premier Ford that this is one of his stupidest ideas he's ever had. He didn't agree with me. He's still pushing it through. So I had no effect on what he's doing, but just, this is a travesty and it just should not happen.
Who's next? Councillor Forder? Yeah. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you, just to add to Councillor Bell and Councillor Bartley, I totally agree with everything they say, and the whole concept of this is completely undemocratic, and I'm certainly not in favor of it. So I'll just leave it at that. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I agree with everything that's been said, and whether we take it at this council or at a higher level, I mean, our council is not broken. So I don't think there's any need for us to change the way we operate. We all participate in decision-making, and that has served us well. So I would like to continue certainly at this table in the way that we have, and I agree. I mean, this is supposed to be all about getting houses built, but our situation, I don't think, is that different from other municipalities. Our holdback is obviously the infrastructure that we need to go forward with permitting this construction. So until the province is stepping up with checks for water and wastewater plants, we're going to be in the same, not necessarily a holding pattern, but in the same situation that we are now with getting the housing. So I don't think having a strong mayor is going to help us get a wastewater plant. So I'm completely in favor of continuing as we are, and I'll leave it at that.
Councillor Urick?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Can't disagree with my esteemed colleagues. Yeah, I think this council has displayed that there's a degree of professionalism, and we have not had difficulty reaching consensus on any subjects that have come by. What's interesting to me is that if there are things that are going to be impediments, that I think what we've displayed in the past is that we would work together as a team, and we would put the whole voice of council with the mayor's hopefully agreement and cooperation to combat whatever whatever upper tier issues or whatever other battles we were fighting. So I couldn't agree more. I think it's really interesting that in our communications, we already had 5 municipalities who were putting forth official withdrawals from this action. So I think a lot of municipalities are going to be feeling the same and voicing their opinions, but I don't see a great reason to proceed with it.
Can I invite people on the other side of the horseshoe to chime in?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And just from a staff perspective, obviously there's challenges with it. For me, to Councillor Forder's point as well, to me, it's the least amount of democracy that they're considering here. I think there's, this idea of building homes faster has nothing to do with this. I think there's other ways, and I'd been in front of provincial hearings before, talking about if you want to build homes faster, speed up your ability. The province needs to speed up their ability of doing EAs for specific municipal infrastructure. I think the province could play a huge role in pre-qualifying contractors, consultants, that municipalities would get the benefit of getting really good pre-qualified providers that have their prices tied in, and essentially be able to, fast track local procurement processes for water, wastewater, roads projects. This is not going to build homes faster. I think if anything, it's going to create more frustration within the system as developers and builders get their plans done and then be told to hurry up and wait because we don't have the infrastructure. So it's, it it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me, and I'm very, very happy to hear that common theme around the council table, because it tells me that this is a group of council that works well together. Doesn't have to agree on everything, which is, you don't want council to agree with everything, but the level of respect that I see here already through this debate, and I've had the benefit of I think I only have one more one-on-one meeting with the counselors. This has been a theme, and it's just refreshing to see that, consistent mindset that it's good to have 7 members of the community that are elected officials make decisions of 7 and not have that concern of one individual being able to trump, or maybe bad pun, but just you make decisions as a group. And the thing I love most about democracy is not one member of council can make the decision. It takes a vote of council, a majority vote of council, to make the decision, because that group has the best overall intention for the community. So I'll open it up to other members of staff, but really appreciate the discussion thus far. And I think the discussion is leading in the right direction. And if council would like a letter to be created from the municipality to go to the province, happy to do that and just get that direction from council if this municipality would like to have their voice heard at the provincial level. So thank you for that.
Margaret or Sarah or Val, any comments?
Thank you, and through you, Mayor Kentner. I echo the sentiments that Sean has said as well. I think, when we talk about democracy, we talk about exactly this is all voices being heard. So the sentiments that are being said are echoed equally through myself. Thank you.
Go ahead, Val.
I'm with CO Everett.
Thank you. Margaret, we rely very much on your guidance for so many things in terms of protocol, and so
Well,
I'm sure you're aghast.
Thank you, Mayor Kettner. I did have the opportunity to write the report, and I tried to be as objective as possible, so council had the information that they needed to think about this very clearly. And I think Councillor Bell read a really important addition to that. And as I had said previously, I think I could have written many more pages on this topic and maybe a position paper on it as well, but I won't go into great detail. But I do think that it might be a train we can't stop, but if council chooses, based on the conversation, as the CAO mentioned, there is the opportunity to take some action should council wish. And I think it may go unheard, but it also will be on the record. And if that's the direction that you'd like to take, that would be an appropriate one. We would just need a motion for that. As Councillor Uhrig noted, a number of municipalities are taking that action. And I think it's interesting to watch. And I hope that municipalities are heard through that, but one can only wonder. And I guess May 2nd we'll find out, May 1st we'll find out.
So maybe at this point, I'll just ask for a mover and a seconder for the motion. If you would write it, and then I'll just talk for a moment while you're doing it. The mover, Councillor Forder, a seconder, Deputy Mayor Keaveney. Good. And if you'll write that, I just want to say I took advantage of a narrow window of opportunity during the county council session with all of the 9 first-tier councils to express my point of view, because I felt that the door was opened. It was first opened by local press, who raised objections to the meeting being closed. And there were a few people said something, but I felt I wanted to make the point that democracy, first of all, municipal councils is the bedrock of democracy. And it's very concerning that we have such low voter turnouts in recent elections as we do at the municipal level. And I'm certainly hoping that today, at the end of the day, when all the votes are counted, one of the news stories will be that Canadians came out in full force to exercise the privilege and the right they have with their franchise. And we have, the terrible example to the south of us where, a strong president does not make the best president. And I think that I was inspired to say, to ask that we have the meeting opened rather than closed. And my point was that it was being closed on the basis that it was council training and therefore, qualified as a subject that, you need free, open discussion. You don't want to have anybody looking over your shoulder on it. So therefore, we'll have it enclosed and people can be comfortable. And my point was simply that I have never in an education session heard anything that I didn't think wouldn't really serve rank and file voters very well. And I felt bad that, but fortunately, by a vote of 22 to 21, it was decided to have that in open session. And I was happy with that. I think that was important, and I was glad to, make my point. So we have go ahead, Councillor Bell.
Thanks. Quickly, Mr. Mayor. This is moving this looking more like the American style of government. And those of us that watch things in Canada, things south of the border, nobody likes just being told something and just make it happen. And, inside this, we've all read it, you would have the power to veto something. So at budget time, we could decide we don't want it. And the mayor just goes, no, we're going to do that. That's done. Next. And then we even currently get people who say, well, we need to hear from our councillors. Where's council on this? What's council doing on this? And then it would be worse. We'd have our hands cuffed even worse. And so, Mr. Mayor, whoever wants to move having a letter sent in opposition to the province of Ontario, I'll personally scribe my name to the bottom of that. And in the report, it even said that even if this council does that, sending it to our boss, who actually allows us to form like this, they may not even entertain it. But the point is, we need to speak up and tell them we don't like it, and we'll send them this message. And if others do it, maybe it will sink in just a little bit. And the democracy, Mr. Mayor, democracy has been paid for in this country with blood. Yeah. It's not a politician that guaranteed us the right to sit here. It was a soldier. Not the clergy that gives you the right to worship. It was a soldier. We can talk about that at length. This country is founded on the ability of us to behave together, have different opinion, and at the end of the day, when you call the vote, you call the vote. And the maturity of us says, we move on with the direction. And I wouldn't want to be a mayor that would have the authority to have such a big head that the doorways would have to be increased for me to pass through. Just don't do it.
And certainly I am, not seeking those powers. We do have a mover and seconder for that motion, actually. So I think we just simply have to vote on it. So all in favor? Okay, yeah, well, I guess we better sorry. Sorry. We need to let you finish it, and we'll hear it before we vote. Maybe just one more comment too. I was impressed with what AMCTO said about the damage this would do to the relationship between the mayor and the CAO. And I want to tell you, I get a lot of criticism for the fact that Mr. Everett is our third CAO, but I want to pay tribute to the ones that came before you. That relationship was exceedingly important and valuable. And I definitely would not want to see that damaged. it is, I was surprised. I mean, in my younger days, I covered Meaford Council, Thornbury Council, Owen Sound Council, Grey County Council, and Bruce County Council, and I thought I knew it all. But when I got in the councilor's chair, I discovered that there was a lot I didn't know about how a municipality operates. And key is the relationship. And it's no different really than the relationship I had with an owner of 8 or 9 radio stations. That relationship, it has to be a good one. And I have a lot more faith in the system now after I've been educated a bit through experience. So that motion, oh, sorry, did you want to make a comment?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The only thing I wanted to add, the only thing we didn't say there, we discussed at the Grey County level was really interesting was you alluded to a little bit, Steve, but it would really interesting how it would impact future elections, because how many people would even want to bother to run for council if they thought I get on there and my voice can be overridden like that. That could totally impede people who want to do the right thing. Not only that, could also feed into the people who might be doing it for the wrong reason to go, I have the power and want to assume that position. So it's not even just endangering now, it's endangering future potentially.
Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I appreciate those comments, Councillor Bartley, because I look at the timing of this and I think that's odd because we're elected as 7 people to work together to be this great team that we are and to make decisions, you know, in a democratic manner. And it just seems to me if the mayor took these powers now, we're saying to our public that you voted us in, but now we're going to go off in a completely different direction and run things in a completely different manner than you elected us to do. So I feel we owe it to the people that put their Xers beside our names to continue to operate in the way that we are and to provide to them the service of being a council of 7 people that make decisions on their behalf. So it just would feel in my mind if we went down a different path, like a little bit of a betrayal to those good people who put us here.
Okay, Margaret, do you have a motion there?
Thank you, Mayor Kentner. I do feel like I cheated a little bit because I did pre-write some options for council. So I pulled from the report one of the options that I had provided, so I didn't madly type just to be transparent and upfront about that. But I would suggest if this was something that in the spirit of the council discussion, that I would suggest that the motion be replaced with, be it resolved that the Municipality of Meaford Council formally requests that the Premier of Ontario and the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing immediately remove the Municipality of Meaford from the list of municipalities designated under the Strong Mayor's legislation, or offer the option to municipalities to opt out of the Strong Mayor powers, and that a copy of this resolution be forwarded to the Premier of Ontario, Rob Ford, the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, Rob Flack, MPP Paul Vickers, and the Association of Municipalities of Ontario.
Okay, are we ready to vote? All in favor? And that's carried unanimously. Thank you. If it were a recorded vote, you would all be on record.
We could certainly take a recorded vote. I would also offer that we could put the names of all
I would
council at the
prefer
bottom.
that too. Sometimes a recorded vote seems to indicate, you know, there's some controversy involved, and there's no controversy here. So.
The only note, if I may, Mayor Kentner, is that I think we want to turn this around quite quickly. So if any members of council are able to sign tomorrow, I would suggest that we do this sooner rather than later, do the timeline. So
Yes.
I will draft the letter before the end of the day and have it available at my desk tomorrow if anybody if you can come in and sign it. If possible, depending on the timing of the meeting, I can maybe print it here and have it before the end of council. Considering that there's not a lot of context to it, I'm just going to draft a municipal letter with that.
Okay. Yes, thank you. Okay, the next item, the recommendation is that Council of the Municipality of Meaford approve a heritage permit for the property at 165 Sykes Street North to construct a second-story addition above the existing structure at the rear of the house for the purpose of adding a washroom as per the submitted drawings, subject to the following condition, that the exterior be clad with similar materials as the existing dwelling. A mover and a seconder for this. I'm looking to the Heritage Chair, Councillor Forder, seconded by Councillor Bell. Discussion on this? This is very straightforward. We've seen the photograph and so forth. All in favor? That is carried unanimously. The next item is, the recommendation is that Council of the Municipality of Meaford enact a bylaw to authorize the mayor and clerk to execute an extension to the Municipal Capital Facilities Agreement with Tekla Holdings, Inc. for the purpose, or sorry, for the portion of the building at 390 Syke Street North leased for the Ontario Provincial Police. A mover and a seconder for this, Councillor Bell and Councillor Urick. Thank you. Discussion, Councillor Bell.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. First of all, good work to staff, because you gave us in the report some comments about times past, where we are currently, and where we could possibly go into the future, the timeline that you've worked out, and for the OPP to have a presence here. I think that I definitely vote in favor of the work that was done to move forward at this time. Well, thank you. I know there was a lot of conversation.
Any other questions or comments? I'm going to call the vote then. All in favor? And that is carried unanimously. Thank you. Now I need a motion to move into Committee of the Whole. Councillor Urick, seconded by Councillor Forder. And we're doing that at 3:27 p.m. And the first item, the recommendation is that Committee of the Whole receive report CAO 2025-10, update on proposed community benefits agreement bylaw for information purposes. A mover and seconder, Deputy Mayor Keaveney and Councillor Urick. Thank you. Discussion on this. Questions on this?
Mr. Mayor, I can maybe just
Oh, I
start.
beg your pardon.
Yeah, sorry.
You go ahead, Sean.
Just as an introductory discussion, of course, the proposed community benefits agreement, it has went through a series of consultation. I do really want to express the desire of staff for council to be able to bring forward, their comments in regards to the motion that was originally presented, making sure that this is in line with what you were looking for from a direction perspective. Really looking for the benefit of staff to understand, has this hit the mark, or do you want more information? To be able to move forward with a well-informed decision in the future. So I just really open it up for some discussion. We've got some time here if we need more clarification. This is my second week here. I just really want to make sure that council is comfortable with the direction thus far. And if we are, that's good. If not, we have the opportunity to gather some additional information, provide some clarity, or quite frankly, to have council articulate just exactly what you're looking for. If this is not what you're looking for, then my goal is to get a better sense, maybe not today, but if we have to schedule something in the future, we get one shot at this, and I want everybody to feel extremely comfortable. I know there's been some good work, and the community has been very vocal in regards to their thoughts. I want that to be represented. But the 7 members of council, really, we take our direction from the 7 members of council and really want to make sure we hit the mark with this. So thank you for that opportunity to provide that introduction.
Thank you for it. Deputy Mayor Keaveney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I really appreciate your comments, Sean, because this has been concerning to me since I brought the original motion. And just for people who are listening, I may just read the 2 recommendations. The first was to direct staff to proceed with the proposed public consultation and communications plan intended to gather feedback on a proposed community benefits agreement bylaw. And the second was to direct staff to provide a follow-up summary report of feedback received during the proposed public consultation to accompany the proposed community benefits agreement bylaw for council's consideration. So in my mind, the eventual bylaw would speak to a framework for a community benefits agreement, an outline of what that process might look like and how we would go about engaging the public to be, to be part of that process. And that's not what we have in this bylaw. So I am looking forward certainly to the report from staff and a summary of the feedback received from our members of the public, because that is critical. But I agree with Sean. We only have one chance to get this right. And if there's an opportunity to step back a little bit and to have, whether it's, whether we need a deferral or whether we need further consultation or more information or a rewrite or just whatever is needed to get to a place that we're all comfortable with, I just think that we need to make sure we give ourselves that time and to give this full consideration. So I'll look to staff for that recommendation. This report today is for information, and that's fine. But what are we thinking up in terms of a timeline if we wanted to just give ourselves a little break on this and allow staff to complete the report and look at options, if I may suggest, for moving forward from there?
Sorry, go ahead, Sean.
Mr. Mayor, one suggestion I would make. So council, because this is a for information report, there's a couple things. One, it is simply for information. Whether or not you want to defer or table it, I don't think it really impacts the report. I would make the suggestion, because selfishly, even for my own benefit, I'd love the opportunity to have a session with council. For me to really get into the details of it. And then probably more importantly, for me to be given sort of the details of where council's mind was when we started talking about this, just so I can best represent the municipality and best represent council and moving those discussions forward with the stakeholders as well as our own with our own legal counsel. So having that opportunity for me to be well informed as well. And as I say again, I think it's really important that council has that opportunity to clarify what the intention was and how you want to see this moving forward. And just being able to have those discussions. So that would be, it's not my motion, but it's sort of the rationale of where I think would be a very beneficial piece to go, and including staff that have been heavily involved and have done fantastic work thus far, and just making sure that what we've done is exactly what you were looking for at the very beginning of this.
Councillor Yurick.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for that, Sean, and Deputy Mayor as well, because I'm sure we all received many emails, phone calls on this, and there was totally a lack of clarification. It's really interesting that it is recommended that when you put things out to the public for consumption, that they should be written at a grade 6 level. This was not written at a grade 6 level. And to your point, it really needs to clarify the intention, which has to be defined. Overwhelmingly, the response I received was, why are we putting obstacles in place of having trying to negotiate an agreement with TCE? And that is not the intention of this in any way, shape, or form. So the real direction needs to be absolutely clear, and it needs to be put forth in a manner which can easily be understood by everyone in the municipality. So that would be my first concern, is just whatever goes out there, we have to keep it simple.
Councillor Bartley.
Thank you, Mayor Kettner. What we're doing is receiving this report, but like the CAO said, I think we need another meeting, because truthfully, we need a meeting with the CEO to bring him up to speed on what we're thinking. I don't have a clue what this means. I'm sorry to say that. I don't understand this, and I would like a refresher course on it also.
And maybe just in the silence gap, I'll add that I certainly want to see, have an opportunity to read and digest the public input that we have received. I feel we, it was probably a long enough period, given how difficult it would be to assimilate the document. So, and we're on a timeline, and there wasn't a lot of time to make decisions here. But I think that I need to see what people have said about this and digest that. And I think that, you know, yes, we need to have a pause and reconsider how we're going to approach this. So it looks like we may be ready to vote. All in favor? Thank you. It's carried unanimously. The next item is the recommendation that Committee of the Whole recommend Council of the Municipality of Meaford enact a bylaw to establish a Heritage Advisory Committee, which includes an updated terms of reference for the committee. A mover and a seconder for this, moved by the chair, Councillor Forder, seconded by Deputy Mayor Keaveney. Any comments, discussion here? Deputy Mayor?
Thank Mr. Mayor. I did have a question. In the terms of reference, and please tell me if I missed this, is it required in the terms that a member of council be assigned as the designated chair?
Denise is going to help us here with.
I believe, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So through you, I believe that's the case. So this terms of reference was using the same template we're using for all of the other advisory committees. And then we just added on to some additional details that the committee, the Heritage Committee really wanted added. So otherwise it's using the same basis, which requires a member of council be the chair of the committee.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If I may follow up, I understand that that is, you know, what we've all agreed to. I just wasn't sure that it really clearly stated that in the terms that a member of council would be the chair.
So through you, Mr. Mayor, I'm just pulling it up right now to make sure that I remember reading it, and I don't know if Margaret wants to help. I think she was nodding a second ago, so I'm not sure if she wants to clarify, but it wasn't, I remember it being in there. I'm just going to look and see if I can clarify.
John, I thought I saw your finger on the button. If you have a comment, go right ahead.
Just through you, Mr. Mayor, because we're in committee of the whole, if that's something that we can't find right away, we can ensure that that is the case, and identify it in the next council meeting for sure. If council would appreciate that, we can also just double check to make sure that the verbiage is absolutely clear. That the chair is an elected member of council.
So it's probably just an omission, I think. So I would like to go on record before we vote how much I appreciate the work of staff and our new Heritage Advisory Committee chair in getting these terms of reference brought forward. I think that there was a strong desire on the part of Heritage Committee members for terms of reference that were a little closer to what they were trying to, or thought that they had been, brought on board to help achieve. And I think that they will do an excellent job with these terms, and I just appreciate the time and effort to make that happen. Thank you.
Thank you. It was our pleasure to get this wrapped up to something that we were really proud of.
Thank you. Okay, are we ready to vote on it then? All in favor? And that is carried unanimously. Thank you. The next item, we had some deputation on this earlier. The recommendation is that Committee of the Whole recommend Council of the Municipality of Meaford enact a bylaw to adopt an updated recreation fund policy. Mover and a seconder. It's moved by Councillor Bell and seconded by Councillor Forder. Thank you. Any discussion on this? Yeah, go ahead, Councillor Forder.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And through you, just something I wanted to throw out there just for council discussion is, so we have thresholds with regards to eligibility. And I don't know if any other recreation funds in other municipalities have this, but should we have sort of an appeal mechanism for applicants that are facing genuine hardship that may not be able to take advantage of this level of support because they are facing significant economic hardship? It just, I just don't know if that is a thing that we see. It was just something I thought about and just want to know if it had any legs or if we just leave it as is. So no, I'm not putting forward a motion. I just wanted to bring that up for discussion for the room to consider.
Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I do appreciate that because we heard from Georgia Dene that she spends, and I know she does, a considerable amount of time assisting her students with the application process. And I suspect the same would happen at the food bank. I would hope that it does, but I think we might want some clarity in that regard, just to make sure that, you know, nobody is turned away because they just don't have a computer or they don't have the ability to fill out the application. She did suggest that we allow handwritten applications. And I know there was an issue in prior years with those applications not being fully completed or completed properly, missing information and so on. So I think if there's, you know, someone at the food bank who can assist families to get this done properly, that would satisfy some of the needs and the concerns of staff. I think my concern, and I'm just not sure I've got a decision in mind, so I'm looking for everybody to participate in this conversation, is, you know, do we stick with what we suggested, the 20% and the 500, or do we make any changes to that, having heard the deputation that we did? Because the whole idea of this is to help those who need it the most. And, you know, are we putting barriers in place that prohibit these families from accessing the programs? So I just, I want to hear everyone contribute to that conversation while I organize my own thoughts.
Councillor Urick?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, lots to think about. That was an empowering presentation because there are communities, individuals in our community who cannot afford anything. And your consideration is interesting, whether or not there is, because what we were trying to do was avoid people who are not necessarily in a position to take advantage of it when they really didn't need it. What we're trying to do is protect that the bottom tier, which really cannot. So it'd be interesting to see what that would look like, whether, I don't know whether staff would have any concept of that, but what kind of an arbitration system might exist to look at applications that require further consideration or claim due hardship or something under that auspice that might override just the basic parameter. Because I think the basic parameter, yeah, we're trying to kind of avoid abuse, but we don't want to then throw out the baby with the bathwater on it.
Councillor Bartley?
Thank you, Mayor Kettner. We discussed this at length the last time we come up with these figures, and I think we have to try it for a year. We could change it. We could change it all again, but we're trying to stretch that money out from January to December. We were out way too early last year. You could have thrown $500,000 at it and it still would have been out the way it was handled. I think we come up with a fairly good formula. I think we should try it for 2025. 3 other things today we put out. We're going to do it for 2025, possibly change for 2026. I'm in favor of leaving it as written.
Councillor Bell?
Thank you. I agree with my fellow Councillor Bartley on giving this a try. Just as a side note, you know, we just had the discussion about community benefits. So I've said this before. I coached soccer in Old Sound for many years. We don't have a soccer field here. maybe somebody could come up with a suggestion, but maybe having a sports field like that might be something of a great benefit. Because, you know, for a pair of cleats and some shin guards, you're playing soccer for a long time. It's a lot cheaper than being a goalie in minor hockey. It's the most expensive that your child could get into. And I believe heavily in sports. So just to think about that as a community benefit, that maybe an athletic field might be a really cool idea. So let's try this year. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So just the two questions there for clarification. It was mentioned, would the program be retroactive to January? And can we accept then the handwritten applications?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Currently, we only accept paper applications. We want to add online just to have an additional option there for people, but currently we only accept paper. And sorry, what was your other option there or question there?
Thank you. Would the program be retroactive to January?
As it is right now in the policy, yes, or as in the report, yes.
All right, are we ready to vote? Are you thinking? Oh, you're good. Okay. I'll call the question. All in favor? And that's carried unanimously. Thank you. Going to call on, no, but I called Mr. Bart Toby is here, and I'm sure he would like to tell us about his March building report. We always want more information, but it seems that the more information we get, the more complex it becomes.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that's always true. It's the more information we process, the more difficult it gets. I think year over year, we're at roughly the same number of permits as the previous year. Our values are a little bit down, but that's not unusual. From month to month, it's hard to look because we are a relatively small municipality. That when we do have a number of projects go through of certain types, the values will jump up quite a bit. Just as a general note, we are still strong. We still have a lot of applications in the system, and we have a lot of big projects in the system. So some of them are coming to the end of the review, and I suspect in the near future, some of them will actually get processed into permits. So for any questions, please.
Yeah, questions for Bart? Is there any sign that the economy is crashing, or I always say that the Southern Georgian Bay area is certainly about the best place to be, to keep your trades job, because we are also Toronto's playground, and they don't stop playing, just because there's a recession. So my question is, what's your prognostication at this point in time?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'm not an economist. I can say is we have a lot of applications in. We are processing some very large applications, larger than we have in the past 3 years or probably the last 20 years. Some of those large projects will have a huge impact on the municipality. And we hope that in 2025, those projects will come to fruition. In the near term, we have some medium-sized projects coming through. We suspect in the next 2 months, a month, that those projects will actually get past the finish line. And we'll see some big jump in the numbers from those projects too. So, but just on the average day-to-day activity, we're still going to have lots of people coming to the counter. We have lots of applications coming in, being processed. So, yeah, we're doing well, and we're busy.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, if there's no more questions, why? We are ready for updates on County Council. First of all, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. County Council last met on April the 24th, last Thursday. There were several announcements, but we did begin with Executive Director Dave Shorey and Board Chair Steve Lowe of Georgian College. Addressing council, they thanked county for their ongoing support and partnerships. Georgian College recognized Grey County with a Community Partner Award of Distinction earlier in April. Grey County has made many financial contributions to programs at Georgian College, including the four-year nursing program, marine and skilled trades training programs. Director of Economic Development, Tourism and Culture, Savannah Myers, had nominated Georgian College for the Community Clean Energy Champion Award at the recent nuclear conference in Ottawa for their leadership and expanded programming in power engineering, apprenticeships, and nuclear sector training. In his acceptance remarks, Dave Shorey spoke to the deep partnerships fostered with nuclear operators, suppliers, unions, and community leaders. Thursday was a sad day. It was CAO Kim Wingrove's last county council meeting before her official retirement May 2nd. Deputy CAO Randy Scherzer, as we know, will assume full CAO duties. And you may have seen in the press, but Niall Lobley is going to be the new deputy CAO for the county, and he comes to us from Georgian Bluffs, and we kind of feel badly for Georgian Bluffs because they've had some challenges with recruiting CAOs. But anyway, that is certainly good news for the county. CAO Wingrove was appropriately honored with heartfelt comments from Warden Andrea Matrosovs, who spoke of Kim's steady, trusted, dedicated, and insightful leadership over the past decade. Some of Kim's legacies include the renovation of the county admin building, the rebuild of Rockwood Terrace long-term care, Sydenham campus, the SOS program, and our Grey County Transit bus service, just to name a few. Kim will be greatly missed, and we wish her a very happy retirement. Grey County ended 2024 with a surplus of, I don't know whether to say it loudly or softly, but $4.4 million. Council approved a report directing staff to move the funds into various project reserves, and the money will be available to fund projects in the future. Some factors contributing to the surplus include higher than expected new tax revenue from growth, additional funding from the province for long-term care services, salary gapping, higher than expected investment income, and many tenders coming in under budget. Council approved moving up a construction project on Grey Road 9 in Hanover from the year 2026 to 2025. This project will extend paving work already planned for Grey Road 9 and will reduce the overall cost compared to doing the projects separately. A tender of $458,000 was awarded to Cox Construction Limited. The project will be funded from the anticipated 2025 construction budget surplus. Grey County will provide the City of Owen Sound with $45,000 from the Affordable Housing Reserve Fund to assist in the purchase of a piece of land for affordable housing. The project is a partnership with the Owen Sound Not-for-Profit Affordable Housing Corporation and will provide 12 to 14 much-needed units. And that's it, Mr. Mayor, unless you wanted to add anything.
No, thank you. That's excellent. Is there a report from the Heritage Committee? Thanks, Brendan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And through you, we did have a Heritage Month. It feels like a long time ago, but that was on April 9th, I believe. And we did cover a number of things here. Pardon me as I just get to my notes here. I'm just missing my spot. Oh, here we are. So we, of course, we welcomed a new committee. We had all the new appointees that had been assigned to the Heritage Advisory Committee. That was their first opportunity to sit with the group as a whole. So that was great, and we're moving forward with that. We did, of course, discuss and finalize our recommendation for the terms of reference, and that discussion was pretty fulsome. And of course, we adopted that today. We also did discuss the Heritage Conservation District report. That was originally implemented in 2014, so it's long due for an update. There was some work that was done on 2021, but that seemed to stall out. So that's something that we had a pretty good discussion about. One of the key important topics that that involve this is the integration of sustainability into the report itself. Of course, how heritage buildings were built as many years ago as they were. climate and standards, all of these things are different today than they were then. So sustainability is a really important part of this, particularly with when we think of green initiatives and how we could incorporate that into how we make heritage decisions. And also coming from that was the challenges and opportunities report, and that is going to be a completely separate discussion that we're going to have hopefully at our next Heritage Advisory Committee meeting, because there's lots of really cool things that we can talk about there. And then, of course, there is a Heritage Ontario Conference coming up, and I believe that's in June. And then, of course, just giving the committee an opportunity if anybody wanted to put their name forward to participate in that. And for what I hear, it's a really cool conference, and the name of it, I think it's in Picton, but the name was escaping me. So if I'm wrong, apologies. And then our next meeting will be on June 11th. So that'll be all. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
And is there anything from the Pump Storage Advisory Committee?
Mr. Mayor, thank you. Yes, we did have a meeting on the 10th. CAO Everett was present, so he may want to add to my comments, but we did have presentation from the Great Lakes St. Lawrence Cities Initiative. They're now up to more than 270 members, so they have presented to this council before, so I won't get into the details of their presentation, but they spoke to their purpose and to their climate and coastal resilience work, and to their they spoke to their disaster mitigation and adaptation fund. That is an annual $1 billion a year project that people can apply to. They spoke to their Center of Excellence and reinstated federal funding for shoreline erosion that had been prior canceled in 1997. And after that, we talked about the bylaw that is before this council, and there were comments made from PSAC that will come into the staff report. And we also heard from a member of the committee who is looking to bring a recommendation forward to this council that will involve the desire of that committee for water testing. So we'll have opportunity to discuss that when we see that at an upcoming agenda. And there were a couple of other notices of motion that came forward. So I'll turn it over to Sean if he wants to add to that.
Yeah, thank you. And Deputy Mayor, really was the first opportunity for me to be in one of those committee meetings. So I just look forward to understanding and start doing the review of the terms of reference. I think the key thing is having staff be there as a strong resource, and to also be able to help assist with the agenda creation and ultimately making sure that the discussion that happens at committees is within the scope of the actual terms of reference. I think is a real essential piece. So just making sure that, and I would love the opportunity with the committee to be able to review the terms of reference to see if it hits the mark. And ultimately, council is the authority on the terms of reference. Or if there's any changes that the committee is recommending, then I think the idea would be then to have it come to council to see where council's mind is at as far as any changes to the terms of reference. So looking forward to continue to work with that group.
Thank you. Is there any other boards or committees to hear from? Seeing none, I think we just will take a motion to move out of committee of the whole. Councillor Bartley and seconded by Councillor Urick. And we're doing that at 3:59 p.m. Next, notices of motion. Councillor Bartley, you have one. Oh, sorry. Are there any notices of motion? I beg your pardon. So I'll start with the Deputy Mayor and go to Councillor Urick.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I do have a notice of motion, and the motion will be to request a staff report to prepare recommendations for our consideration with regards to possibly reinstating a BIA.
Okay, and Councillor Urick.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Notice motion for, put forth for reconsideration. We, through our budget, had, declined the Apple Pie Trail funding. We're now finding out it's impacting some businesses who have signed up for that. So just want to discuss that at the next meeting. Thank you.
Okay. Let's make a note there. So now on to motions for decision, and you have a motion, Councillor Bartley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And my motion deals with the beautiful Joe Park accessible footbridge. Now, the recommendation, whereas beautiful Joe Park has a very steeply sloped road entrance, and whereas in 2011, the Beautiful Joe Heritage Society funded a study that determined the best accessible solution was a pedestrian bridge across the Big Head River. And whereas the Beautiful Joe Heritage Society has fundraised efforts have raised over $112,000 to date for the accessible footbridge. Therefore, be it resolved that staff be directed to provide a report back outlining the pricing and timing for next steps to move the accessible footbridge project forward, including the inclusion of an environmental assessment if required, and that staff be directed to continue to review accessible funding opportunities and prioritize this project for eligible grants. Thank you. Like, it all sums it up there.
Can I just get a seconder for your motion then? Councillor Forder, thank you. Go ahead and.
And to sum it up, we had a group of people that went out there in the municipality and raised $112,000, and for us to turn our backs on them would be wrong. Not saying we're doing this. We need information to move forward on how to do it, how much it's going to cost and whatnot. And that might put an end to it. It might not. We might be able to do it, but I just think that's our next step. Thank you.
Any comments, questions? All in favor? Thank you. Unanimous again. And Councillor Urick, you have a motion.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, regards traffic calming and erosion study on Miller Street. And the recommendation reads, whereas residents and road users have expressed ongoing concerns regarding vehicular speeds and safety at the intersection of Miller Street, Owen Street, and Edwin Street West. And whereas Miller Street, west of Edwin Street West, has shown visible signs of soil erosion and potential environmental degradation due to the course of the Big Head River, which may compromise road and adjacent property integrity. Therefore, be it resolved that staff be directed to conduct a traffic count around the intersection of Miller Street and Edwin Street to assess the current conditions and inform next steps, such as potential traffic calming measures or a formal traffic impact study if required, and that staff also be required to consult with Grey Sauble Conservation Authority staff to evaluate erosion along Miller Street, particularly in the affected areas west of Edwin Street West, and report on the contributing factors, impacts, and potential mitigation strategies, and the staff report back to council with findings, options, and any budgetary implications for both traffic calming and erosion control within 90 days.
Can we have a seconder for that? Councillor Bartley, thank you. Discussion, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just 2 points, if I may. First of all, do staff feel that 90 days is doable? And second of all, are staff able to remind us within our master transportation plan what is said about the Miller Street Hill?
Through you, Mayor Kentner, to Deputy Mayor Keaveney. I do know that we had been putting $45,000 a year for a couple of years into the Miller Street, and they were supposed to be doing some type of review. I don't know where that is at right now. And as far as the master plan, I'm not familiar enough with the master plan to answer that question at this time, but we can bring you something back at a later date.
Councillor Urick.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, that was the recommendation from staff actually to put in the 90 days. Yeah, a number of things, and again, talking to a number of people that everybody has an opinion. Just interestingly, whether Miller Street would, we talked about closing it off, but couldn't really figure out how that would work. But whether it could be a one-way street, somebody had brought up the concept of whether that, because that would mitigate some of the going back and forth. But, and again, there's just all kinds of things being put out there, hence asking for a very, you know, good report that's going to come up with some solutions, because there's literally only about 7 or 8 feet between the post office boxes there and the bank now. So as it keeps eroding, that's going to be problematic.
Councillor Bell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, fellow Councillor Urick. You've got in your motion that you'd like to direct staff to conduct a traffic count. I think that'll cost us some money. I mean, I wanted to put up some stop signs or something and ended up with a $10,000 invoice to be paid. I'm not so sure we really need to have a traffic count on the erosion. And I'm going to move that we have a discussion on pulling that from your motion. And the other one is to put you on a little bit of a spot, Mr. Urick, my fellow person on Gray Sobel Conservation and the chair. I've just elevated you now. Do you really think that we're going to see that as board of directors to talk about erosion in the river there? I don't recall us having other conversations. So your motion's okay to have staff talk with staff at Gray Sobel, but I know you get called and I get called about the erosion as if we actually can have an impact on it. And I don't think, to put words in your mouth, we're on the directors. I don't know if we're going to have comment on that. What's your take on that? Just leaving it with staff to staff?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, 2 points. One was, it was interesting because I didn't actually, when I talked to staff before crafting the motion, finalizing the motion, it was their recommendation that we actually look at the traffic count, which I believe was going to be done at very little cost to know. So that wasn't a concern. The cost wasn't going to be, because I had potentially, or I mean, I had initially kind of recommended the possibility of 4-way stop sign. And they recommended before we do that would be wise to get a traffic count to by provincial standards to make sure that it warrants that. So I think it is a natural step that has to happen, and their staff assures me that it's not going to be a costly factor to do that. Regarding the erosion aspect of it, I've spoken with CAO Lanthier, as I have on many times on this, and he agrees that this definitely needs to be in the conversation, because this is going to be an ounce of prevention, pound to cure, because if we don't do something about it now, it's going to cost more to do it later. He did agree that, yeah, he is totally welcome to our staff's talking so that it can then be put on agendas for the board to discuss, as well as for council to discuss at this end. But I think they realistically need to be at least have a conversation first before it gets to the kind of this official decision-making process. So Tim's aware of it.
Did you wish to speak to any of this, Sean?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just my understanding in my brief time here, I do believe we actually have equipment in-house to do the traffic count. So it's not a big cost to us. So, and I do agree that's a great place to start, just figuring out what are the traffic counts there. One other piece, just from the erosion perspective, I welcome the opportunity to sit down with Grace Sobel as well. And take it one step further and really try to work with the Conservation Authority as well as our partnering municipalities. For years, rivers and tributaries have been downloaded to the municipality because we're the last one standing. The rivers and tributaries aren't really the municipality's issues. This is a long-standing issue that I think, as a region, and those municipalities that actually have rivers and tributaries that have went for years and years without any maintenance, should be going back to the province as a group, asking for management plans that clearly identify the roles and responsibility of each tier, because it's about 30 years too late. But it is just going to get worse and worse because nobody can afford it, and the municipalities we really don't have a play in it other than we are the last one standing. So welcome that discussion with CAO land today.
Are we, go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. One final thought, if I may. I mean, the section of road on the Miller Street Hill is probably the worst in the urban area at this point in time. I'm just wondering, while we go through this process of preparing a report and so on, is there any chance that staff could repair some of the potholed section that's on the hill right now? It's quite bad on the south side. Yeah, there's a section there that's in quite a bad state of repair. So I'm just wondering if there's any chance we can kind of touch that up in the meantime while we're working on this report.
Through Mr. Mayor to Deputy Mayor, the potholes right now and road repair and maintenance, I've heard that a lot over my short time. I'd like to work with operations staff to be able to maybe bring a report that gives a bit of an overview of this year's planned work, just to inform council and inform the public that, you know, these are the projects that we're sort of looking at over the next couple of months. And those areas that we hear, maybe speaking to those to see what the plan is.
Ready to vote on this? All in favor? Thank you very much. Another unanimous decision. I have a resolution here. Be it resolved that Council of the Municipality of Meaford hereby adopt the minutes of the council meeting held on April 7th, 2025, and the closed meetings held on March 5, 10, 17, and April 7, 2025. Can I have a mover and seconder for that, Councillor Bell and Councillor Bartley? Any discussion? All in favor? Thank you. That's carried. And is there anything on the communications agenda that anyone wishes to raise? And that includes, I'll just be a little more specific. Is there anything on the correspondence list which is embedded in there? Anyone wish to raise anything there? Okay. Then we have one confirming bylaw and we can adjourn. The recommendation is, be it resolved that bylaw 2025-26, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the Council of the Municipality of Meaford at its regular meetings held in the month of April 2025, be taken as read a first, second, and third time and finally passed. Mover and a seconder, Councillors Forder and Bell, all in favor? That is carried unanimously. Sorry.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to thank council for giving me the opportunity to lead the organization. I wanted to get through the meeting before I did this. So, yeah. So I want to thank council for giving me the privilege to serve this community. And I really want to thank staff for being so welcoming, so open, and when I came here, it didn't feel like I was new. When I came, it just felt like just a different office. So I really do appreciate all the efforts that staff have made, and I really look forward to working with council and the community. This relationship that we're going to build is critically important, and I've been thoroughly impressed with the interactions I've had with council, and I'm sure there's great things to come in the future. So thank you for that opportunity.
Good. And with that, I'm going to adjourn this meeting.